Hello, everybody, and welcome to my survival series. I'm Pappa Nick, and over the past 1,000 days, we have been building the foundation to our forever world. So if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. My goal for 2026 is to reach 2,500 subscribers. So each one of you that subscribe are helping me reach that goal. Also, since this is a longer episode, don't mind just throwing me on in the background as you go about your chores for the day. It really helps out the metrics and helps out the algorithm, so I really do appreciate that. And if you make it to the end of the video, make sure you press that like button. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. All right, we are starting out our brand new world for the very first time, and we are in a tree. That's a good start. We could punch these trees and get ourselves some wood. So that's actually a nice little start. Now let's grab ourselves a quick crafting bench. We'll also make up a little bit of wood here so that we can make some wooden tools and grab some cobblestone. That'll be a nice little start. I think I saw, yeah, we got some stone right here, so I'm just gonna grab up 3 pieces of cobblestone, actually maybe a little bit more, so that we can get ourselves a furnace as well as a couple sets of tools here. We're gonna want our axe, we're gonna want a sword probably as well, so this will be a good little spot to get started. Okay, and just like that, we got our first stone tool. We're gonna actually make ourselves a axe, like I said, and yeah, we're gonna grab ourselves a sword just so that we can be a little bit careful here getting started out. And actually, I think I'm gonna hold on to this wooden pickaxe as kind of a memento for the start of our forever world. So now that we've got ourselves started, I actually did pick out this seed, and we are playing in large biomes, so we have a long travel ahead of us so that we can get to where we're going to be settling down and building our starter base. So along the way, we're going to be grabbing some materials like that chicken right over there. All right, so let's get on with our journey. Let's see if we can find some materials. Like I said, guys, we're going to be traveling a long distance because this is large biomes, so let's figure out where we're headed. Ooh, we got ourselves another portal over here. Let's see if there's any useful material, and we got to be careful. Hold on. Almost jumped into that ravine right away. We are just playing on regular survival, so we wouldn't lose our world or anything, but let's try to avoid that if we can. And there's a little bit of materials here. This will help us get started. I don't mind taking all this cheap armor, and yeah, we got thorns and protection. That'll be a little something. We can also use up these swords real fast as well. That'll be fine. And I think I'm going to grab this chest too. Ooh, and we have sheep here. Let's take up these sheep so that we don't end up, losing our lives. Like I said, we can sleep through the night. I do want to get a little bit of string so that we can, make some bundles, but I think we'll be all right. If we can find a couple more sheep, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay, not any more sheep, but we have found a nice cave here. Maybe we see if we can find a little bit of coal so that we can cook up some of this food, because our hunger bar is starting to deplete. So I think we'll try to grab some coal out of this little cave here, and we got to be careful though. Luckily we have a sword, but we don't have much health. And yeah, right there we have some coal and actually some iron too, so that'd be nice. We have some copper. Obviously we can make some copper armor if we want to, but I think this is, oh, look at that. Okay, so this actually might be a pretty cool place to do a little bit of exploring. I do see some mobs down there, and what is that? What is that, guys? Right off the rip? We're gonna get ourselves some diamonds right off the rip. Beautiful. Okay, we gotta be careful here though. I think I'm gonna grab up this coal, cook up some food, and make sure that we're okay to go down into that area. So now with the first night survived like a true champion, it's time to go get those diamonds and see if we can't find any other raw materials. Okay, I've got a couple of torches here. Let's see if we can survive. I don't see many mobs, which is nice. I think I'm just gonna make a beeline. Oh, but we need an iron pickaxe. I forgot. Okay, and finally we have made it down to the diamonds. Safe and sound, I believe. So let's grab these up. I think it's only going to be 3, but maybe we can have one hidden underneath here. Oh, let's go. Okay, 4 diamonds. So that gives us a pickaxe at least. See if we can find any more laying around here. This is a beautiful start to our brand new adventure. Okay, so I think we found everything that we can find down there. I did grab the chains that were hanging that bridge over there, and we also grabbed up a little bit more iron and a bunch of our copper because we are going to need a bunch of copper for our starter base, but we could deal with that in a little bit. So for now, it's time to venture off and find a nice spot for our starter base. Yeah, it's a bit of an adventure. Like I said, we're playing in large biomes, so things are spread out quite a bit in this world. So we have a ton of blocks to venture off into. Hopefully we can find some villages to raid and maybe just some cool sites along the way. So let's begin our adventure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here it is where we're going to be setting up our base. And I gotta say, I love the generation of these mountains all around us. I think this is such a cool area. Obviously, we have to contend with a ton of birch trees, but I think as time goes on, we can really make this area look awesome. It's a nice little grove down in here. And then, yeah, of course, we have all these mountains that we can play with. And yeah, I think it's going to be awesome if we just build a base up on top of this mountain. We have this nice view out in front of us. I think everything is going to be super cool. So I think what we have to do now is get some chests built out here. I think I have a couple that we've gathered. And yeah, we need to kind of organize our supplies and set up some temporary storage, some furnaces and things so that we can really get going on building this base. And then we're obviously going to have to venture off and find some oak trees and chop a bunch of oak trees, a bunch of these birch trees as well. And then, yeah, we need some other materials as well. So it's going to be a bit of a grind here to get this starter base started, but I think this is a great area to do it. So yeah, bear with me as we do a little bit of material gathering. Okay, so we've gathered up all of the oak I think we're going to need for this project. We also gathered up a little bit of birch to get ourselves started. I think we're going to need a little bit more, but luckily, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. But for now, we're going to grab our pickaxes here and head off to a cave and see if we can't gather up a bunch of cobblestone that we're going to smelt down into stone, make into stone bricks. We're also going to need tuft and a little bit of our deep slate and stuff too. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a mining session here and grab up all the materials that we're going to need. Okay, so this cave looks like a pretty good spot to get started. It looks like we're going to be able to drop down here pretty far. So I think this is going to be a good spot to kind of dig around and get started. And I think we're just going to drop down as far as this is going to let us go. It looks like we have some dripstone here too, which could be good for later so that we can get ourselves some renewable fuel. But yeah, this is perfect. This is going to lead us right down, hopefully to Deep Slate area. That way we can kind of just do all the digging that we need to do down there. And yeah, that should be good. Hopefully we have enough pickaxes, and I am going to grab up all of this copper because we're going to be using a ton of it. We need to make our entire roof out of copper, which copper ingots and copper ore here actually doesn't really go that far. So hopefully we can find enough materials to kind of gather up enough, and maybe we can kind of, you know, cheese the backside of our starter base for today's episode. But yeah, I think this should be a good area to kind of get started. Okay, it doesn't look like it goes much further, so I think I'm going to grab up these raw materials and then just kind of staircase our way down to Deep Slate, and then we can use this whole area to kind of gather all of the stone and stuff we need. We also are probably going to need a little bit of diorite and other materials like that, so I think we'll spend some time in this area, kind of make this our starter like mine area. I think that should be fine. Look at that. Oh, we got some diamonds, but they're in regular stone. So, oh man, those are actually like rare now. So we're not going to grab these right now. Oh, that is amazing though. So we have some rare diamonds here at the start of our adventure. This is beautiful. Okay, but we don't have any silk touch or anything, so we can't gather these to bring them back to our base or anything, but that is super cool. Okay, we've made it down to Deep Slate layer, and actually we broke through into a little bit of a mine area. So I think we're gonna try to get down here, kind of just build this up a little bit so that we can escape when we need to, if my dog doesn't push me off here. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of looking around and kind of torching up this area. Like I said, we don't need a ton of Deep Slate to get started. We mostly just need tuft, but I do want to kind of secure this area so that when we do need more, we can come down here and it's not a big deal. Okay, it looks like we have a bunch of tuft here too, so that's perfect. And wait, what's this? Why do we have a bunch of tough bricks? Well, that's cool. That'll help us out a ton. Okay. We are going to need some of those tough bricks, so that's perfect. Why are those spawning naturally like that? Huh. Oh, okay. So it's a trial chamber. Oh, that's perfect because we're going to need a bunch of copper. I didn't know that they had tough bricks kind of like around it. Oh, that's perfect. We're going to need a bunch of copper so that way we could just come down here and kind of raid this. So that's perfect. Amazing. Okay, yeah, there's all the copper that we're going to need. Awesome. It also looks like we have a geode right here inside of the trial chamber. So that's super cool. Okay, but I'm not really equipped to raid a trial chamber at the moment. Yeah, those skeletons right over there will definitely mess us up. So I think I'm going to take a back seat on that at the moment. And like I said, just gather up all the tuft we need. And, oh, here you go. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, let's grab up all the tuff we need, go back up and grab a bunch more stone and stuff like that. So that way we can kind of get ourselves started on our starter base. And then we can come back down here and grab up all the copper that we need for the roof of our starter base. All right, so we have some good base materials here to get started. We also have our furnaces cooking down some of this cobblestone into our regular stone that we can make stone bricks. But I need to go ahead and start manicuring this landscape a little bit for our starter base. So I think I'm gonna have to grab a shovel and do a bit of digging. And it's probably gonna take me a little bit because, yeah, I don't have like a diamond shovel or anything like that yet, even though we do have diamonds. Is that a good use of our early game diamonds? Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to make ourselves a diamond shovel to make this a little bit easier on ourselves, get started, and then just kind of lay the foundation for our starter base. All right, so now with a fresh haircut to our lawn here, I think it's time we get started building the base of our starter base here. But the only problem is I need a few more materials. I need some moss actually. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of adventuring and try to find some moss because yeah, obviously we need mossy stone variants and things like that. So yeah, a little bit of an adventure here and then we'll be ready to get started. All right, so I found this pale oak forest, and it's got a little bit of dark oak in it as well. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of time here while we're out adventuring to gather up some of these materials and definitely the saplings because we're going to need these in the future. We're going to need these for the roof trim on our starter base here. So yeah, I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time gathering up a little bit of material. We'll definitely grab some of those eye blossom flowers as well because I really like those. So yeah, I think we're going to spend a little bit of time here just gathering some basic materials before we continue on looking for some moss. Ah, okay, there it is. We have found ourselves an azalea tree. We should be able to dig our way down and get ourselves into a lush cave now. So that is very good. Okay. Oh, back up. Oh, my dog's gonna die. Oh, yep. My dog died. Ah, that hurts. But we found our way into the cave. Oh, I guess there was a much easier way down here, huh? All right, well, continue on. Now with the return back home here, you can see that I've already gone ahead and laid out the foundation for our house using our brick and like stone brick variants around the edges and then kind of filling in with our tuft variants. We also have this little bit of like a step up here into the entryway with this step down being into like our kitchen and then kind of like our living area. We're gonna have some storage over here. That's kind of why the floor is a little bit ugly, but you can also see that I've done a little bit of dividers in the floor, so we have that fun pattern there. These are going to be walls, so they don't need any real texturing. We have some of our pale moss in here as like a little bit of a carpet in the kitchen area. I think this is going to look really cool. So I think what we're going to have to do now is grab a couple more axes And we're going to strip a bunch of oak wood down so that we have nice fancy walls here. We're also going to build up a little bit more of the stone here in the kitchen. And then, yeah, we're going to have to grab some sand and stuff to smelt down into glass. We have a bunch of other materials, like miscellaneous materials throughout this entire build as well. But we can get a little bit of the walls put up and give a kind of a visual of where we're going with this building. All right, so we've made a little bit of progress here. You can see we kind of have our doors framed out, kind of a little side door over here. We're bringing in some details. We also have a nice little staircase here in the entryway. You can see where our stove is going to be put in. We're also have a little bit of campfire under here to create a little plume of smoke. But yeah, everything's coming along pretty well. You can see these holes right now is because I need to convert this mud into packed mud and then into mud bricks. And that's just taking a little bit of time here. But yeah, everything's coming along pretty well. We have a bunch of windows in here and everything, so it's gonna be nice and like sunlit, I think. So that's gonna be pretty cool. But yeah, a little bit of details out here with the copper railing. We're also gonna have like shelves here along the windows just to kind of frame those out and add a little bit more details. We'll obviously have a nice little road in here and some things going on off the side. But yeah, everything's coming along really well, so I'm just going to continue to plug on, like I said, get some of these packed mud bricks on the wall outside here. But yeah, everything's going pretty well. And then we're gonna tackle the interior as much as possible as well, but I think that's gonna kind of just come along with time as we kind of continue to gather materials and things kind of just fill out in these spaces. But I think things are going to look really nice for today. All right, guys, big progress update here. As you can see, the building is really starting to take shape. We still have a ton to do because we need to go grab a bunch of copper from the copper trial chamber thing that we found earlier and slap on a nice bluish teal green roof to this whole building. But I think it looks so good, and there's also a ton of details around like the windows and stuff that we need to continue building out. Ignore my dirt staircase here. But yeah, I'm really excited for how this is coming out. I love this shape, and yeah, if we make our way inside, it's so spacious and so large that we really have a bunch of room to kind of expand as we continue to build out this world. So I really like this building, and I'm really excited to get this roof on. So let's grab some materials and make our way down to that copper trial chamber, and yeah, grab up a bunch of copper down there. That'll make this building kind of fly through here and really finish up everything that we need to do. Okay, let's go ahead and make our way in here. I'm trying to be a little bit stealthy because I'm not entirely sure what we have for enemies around here. I think we have some skeletons over there, so we got to be careful. We don't have the best armor. And then I think this room usually spawns the little wind guys, so we got to be a little bit careful here. Oh, we didn't bring any additional blocks either. I'm gonna grab some blocks real quick and kind of cover up some of those spawners and hopefully give ourselves a little bit of an easier time at this rather than trying to tackle all of those spawners all at once. I think this would be enough here. Let's just run over and try to cover up that skeleton spawner before it spawns. All right, perfect. Now we can take down this little wind guy wherever he went. Oh, hey, we got our first key. Look at that. Okay, let's cover that up real quick. I think this thing right here will... Yeah, let's go. Under lock and key. Hey, we got some iron ingots. I'll take that. Only 2, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of exploring around here. I see some dispensers. We're definitely going to grab those because we're going to need them later on. And yeah, we're going to tear up a bunch of this copper and see if we can stay out of trouble as best as possible. Okay, so I think we made out pretty well here. We have a nice loot stack in here. We also got a diamond axe out of one of the little chest things there. We also got a nice little enchanted bow here. We've got some other materials. We got some potions and stuff also laying around. But I think there's plenty more to explore in here. But I think we're going to head back now since our inventory is pretty full. We don't necessarily have all the space to put all this stuff right at the moment. So I think we're going to have to definitely come back here and continue to raid this place and really strip it all out of its copper and all that stuff. But I think we made out pretty well here for our first little forte into the trial chamber. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a ton of progress made here with our starter base, and you can see it's looking so nice at the moment. Obviously, we're not done. A lot of little details still need to go into this build, but I think it's a good time to kind of showcase the progress and stuff. You can see we have this nice white chimney that breaks up the green on the roof. We also have some bushes and stuff, and we need to plant some flowers up here in these windows. We need a little bit more detail out in this side of the building, as well as in this area, but we did bring in a nice little path. And if we go on inside, you can see we started to add some details, but there is a ton of empty room throughout this whole place. Like I said earlier, it's kind of a good thing. It means we can build out this whole area as we progress throughout the game. We can kind of live in this space and not make it feel so, finished right now, but there is a ton of space for us to grow, which I'm really excited about. We have our nice little kitchen area in here, a little bit of storage. We have a little bit more storage underneath our stairs here, and we need to finish up the storage in this area. Like I said, a ton of little details still left to go, but I'm really happy with how this is coming along, and it's taking a little bit longer than I would like, to be honest, because there is so many little pieces and stuff, but I do love this build so much. The next thing we need to do is add some lights up in this tower up here and just add a little bit of technology throughout our whole build. Right now it's very medieval and it has a little bit of kind of life to it, but I want to add that little bit of redstone to it just to kind of show that we have that electrical capability throughout this whole build, and I think it's going to make it really pop. And actually, as we continue throughout the world, we're going to be continuing kind of that electrical medieval kind of hybrid between the two. I think it's a really fun build style, so I'm really excited to kind of get some solar panels, some windmills, and all that kind of stuff, and kind of make it look like everything's connected and kind of brought to life with some electricity throughout the whole thing. But I absolutely love this build. Like I said, needs a little bit more detail right now. So before we finish up, I need to add a few more details, and then we can come back here with some shaders on and take a nice final tour. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one final look here with the shader packs on. You can see that we've added a little bit of detail up there to kind of show that electricity coming through. We obviously have the nice lights up there. We also extended out over here with a nice little awning where we could put like a little garden bed eventually. We also have this little kind of covered canopy over here as well, and then just brought in some flowers and things up top here, kind of just brought things to life. We did have this guy moving for a little bit, but it looks like he has become statuified, but that's okay for now. We'll probably give him some purpose over in this garden area later on. I think it looks pretty cool over there once they start moving around, but I think that's pretty cool. Once we step inside over here as well, we extended out our storage over here completely. We also added little bits of detail up above here. We still have a ton of detail, ton of space to kind of continue. You can also see that kind of electrical component coming down into here, and we can do something here on the wall later on. I think this is a kind of a cool little area. We also brought those copper lamps into here. I want these ones to oxidize just a little bit though, but right now we don't have any honeycomb to kind of wax them at the stage, so I'm just leaving them as is. We come over here again, we can do some more decorating on the walls and stuff, but we are limited as we are still in the first episode with our bits of decoration. I think everything's looking really fun though. Again, selling that kind of electrical component with this with the lodestone kind of being our electrical conduit, if you will. And then just, yeah, continuing to build out these areas and add details throughout. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and just kind of decorating and making it look a lot more like we've lived in it for a time period. But obviously we haven't yet, so things are a little bit empty at the moment, but I have to say I absolutely love this starter base, and I'm really happy with it. To start things out today, I felt like doing a bit of exploring, so I grabbed a boat and made my way out to the nearest ocean biome, which isn't too bad. It's our starter base is kind of like on the other side of those mountains there, so not too bad of a journey out here. I did bring a boat because, yeah, we're definitely gonna have to sleep through the night a few times. And what's that right over there? That looks like a boat. So yeah, we just started our adventure out here into the ocean, and we've already got a boat in front of us, so that's gonna be really good. My plan for this exploration is hopefully to find some of the more rare biomes so that we can get up all of like our tree saplings and things like that, but also find some treasure out here as well, and maybe a couple of buried treasure maps and find some treasure that way. We also look like we have some massive cliffs here that I definitely want to check out because that looks super cool. Okay, before we do any diving into the water, let me make sure I get my armor back on. We didn't bring too many tools or anything. Like I said, we're kind of just worried about getting some sapling and having a little bit of fun exploring in the ocean here. I think this should be pretty good. And right there, we have some new templates. And it looks like we've got a blank treasure map. So that is perfect. Let's open up. Wait, why is there no X on this map? Shouldn't there be an X marks the spot on this map? Am I missing something? What's going on here? I guess I'm gonna grab this chest too while we're here, just because it's a little bit of extra material that I don't want to spend elsewhere. And if we go down here, yeah, there we go. Bunch of iron, some more emeralds. That's beautiful. Okay, and I'll grab that chest too, I guess. Yeah, okay, there's definitely something wrong with the buried treasure maps in this world because this is our second buried treasure map and it doesn't have a treasure marked on it. So there's definitely a bug in this world. That's unfortunate because I really enjoy like getting the buried treasures, and I think that's the only way you can get the heart of the sea. So that might stink if we can't get that item because the buried treasure maps are bugged. We might have to look into that a little bit. After about 30 to 45 minutes of paddling around and raiding different shifts, we finally found a jungle biome, which is probably the most useful at this point for all of its resources. All right, well, we filled up our inventory completely here. I'm feeling pretty good about this loot, so I think I'm ready to head back across the ocean and return home. Right now, what I think I want to do is head into some mining and get some diamonds because I just don't think this armor is really cutting it right now. So yeah, I'm gonna grab some torches and maybe a few more pickaxes, maybe another sword. We do have a shield, so that is good. And then we'll head down into a cave and get ourselves into some trouble. All right, so I just came into this cavern where it's really open and I mean, it stretches on for quite a while in both directions. And actually, I see some diamonds right over there. Okay, we gotta go get those. All right, we just started. What in the world? Oh my God. What the heck, man? I just got these diamonds. You're trying to take them from me? Okay, we really got to be careful around here. We just got 11 diamonds and we just started mining. Okay, we've only been mining for a little bit and we already have 19 diamonds. That is such a good start. We need like 30, something like that to get a full set of armor. But I did just find some skulk, and so we're going to have to be careful. That means that there's deep dark below our starter base. We're pretty close to our starter base, like exactly. So yeah, that means there's a deep dark down here somewhere. Not entirely sure where, but we're going to have to be careful. All right, 23 diamonds, and we're just about out of torches. So I think I'm gonna head back, get some more torches, and keep mining. I love this. This is amazing. All right, so as a way to keep things fresh, I did just find this massive cave here. And yeah, we have a water bucket, so I think we can get down there easy enough. But I am really excited about exploring this. We do know, so my entrance to my other mining cave is like right over there by that chicken. And we kind of went in that direction. So I'm hoping that this one will kind of lead us underneath this mountain. And yeah, hopefully we can find some more goodies. Because like I said, we already have like 20 diamonds. So that's a great start. And I'm ready to just keep going. Oh, this goes way far down. Holy smokes, look at this. Oh, and yeah, we got skulk down here. So we got to be careful. Try not to make too much noise while we're down here, just in case there's a shrieker around. We got a shrieker there. Oh, and that's what's gonna summon the warden. So we gotta be really careful over here. Uh-oh. How am I gonna get out of here? Oh my gosh. Oh no. Oh no. We gotta run. We have got to run. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude, that is so scary. I can't believe I just fell down that hole. We got so lucky. He doesn't even know we're here. Holy smokes, dude, that was so scary. Did he spawn from this one? There's another one up there. What are we doing? What is this? Oh my gosh. It's the deep dark. Dude. What? How do we get in there? Oh my god, we gotta be quiet though. Oh man, I kind of want to get that stuff. Do we explore the deep dark right now? I'll be totally honest with you guys too. I have never explored a deep dark, and the fact that there's a deep dark right here in front of us makes me really, really want to do it. Oh man. I can't believe I'm in here right now. This is a terrible idea. This is so cool. Oh, look at this. We got all kinds of goodies. All right, I'm feeling a little risky right now, but I definitely want to keep exploring down here. Let's see if we can get away with exploring the deep dark. Oh, we gotta go. 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 I can't see. I can't see. Oh no. Why is it still dark? I legitimately cannot see right now. Oh! Oh! He was right below us. What in the world? He was right below us. Okay, so we have a little bit of materials, but I am determined on taking down the deep dark now. Now that I have found it, and it's not very far from our base, I'm determined to take it down. So I think what we need to do is figure out a way to get some wool, because yeah, we're not going to be able to take down these guys without a bunch of wool. All right, so I have decided to set up a temporary sheep farm here. We've got it all wired up. We just need to get some observers, which means we are off to the nether. And as you can see, I've also made myself a shiny new set of armor and a nice little diamond pickaxe here. So it shouldn't be too bad to get into the nether. We just got to set up a temporary portal, and then we can come back here, lure some sheep into these like 1x1 little spots here, and this should work pretty fine. We have a little bit of iron, so we should be able to make a few sets of shears, and then yeah, we kind of just have to sit around and wait for these things to pop and collect some wool. So now what we need to do is find ourselves a nice little lava pool and mine up some obsidian. All right, that's more than enough obsidian to get ourselves started, and we actually grabbed a little bit extra so that we can make ourselves an enchanting table, so that's perfect. Now we're just gonna go build this up and head off into the nether. We're gonna need things like quartz to build the observers, and we're gonna need a ton of observers in the future, so this is a good opportunity for us to dip our toes into the nether and get the materials that we need. All right, let's step into the nether for the very first time. All right, please don't be a soul sand valley. Here we go. Ah, it's a soul sand valley. God, you gotta be kidding me. I feel like every time I come to the nether, I'm in a soul sand valley. But that's okay, because we should be able to find our little friends beneath here. Oh, and there he is. Awesome. So we gotta grab one of those, and we need to grab up some of that as well. And you gotta be kidding me. We're right on top of a fortress. This is actually pretty cool. All right, so let's do a little bit. Man, I feel like I'm totally gonna die, but it might be worth it. Okay, yeah, I'm not ready for this, guys. I'm not ready for this. I don't want to fight. I just want that little plushie down there. Oh no, I don't want to do this. I didn't even bring my shield. Okay, I'm gonna try to sneak down there and grab that happy gas. Looks like that skeleton and that blaze went away. So we're just gonna make a quick dash for it. Grab that guy. Awesome. And maybe we do a little bit of poking around in here. We got to be careful of wither skeletons. Oh, I kind of forgot about wither skeletons. All right, we have a little bit of nether quartz. We got our dried ghast, a couple saddles, and we got some nether warts to get started in. We have a ton of blaze over there. Whew, okay. Well, we kind of have to go that way to get out of here. So maybe we can get ourselves a blaze rod. That'd be pretty nice, huh? Oh, man. I don't think I did. Ah, they didn't drop a single rod. Returning home, it was time to get all of our sheeps into their individual pods. These are fully wired now with our observers in place, and we have our shears in each of the dispensers. And this clip that you're watching right now is actually sped up by 3 times, and it's still taking me far too long to get these sheeps into their individual pods. All right, and there we go. We got our first white wool from our sheep. We did get a brown wool in here as well, so that's pretty sweet. Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of time for the grass to kind of repopulate on these blocks and get some wool, but I think that's okay. We also have our little gasling over here getting hydrated, so we will have that guy pretty soon as well. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time waiting for this to collect up, and yeah, we've already got a couple here, so that's perfect. Not going to take too long for us to get the wool that we need to venture back down to the deep dark and yeah, tackle the warden once more. All right, so I've gone ahead and set up a little base camp here with our bed. We've set our spawn point, and I've just grabbed a little bit of food and a little bit of wool so that we can run around and kind of cover up all those skulk sensor things that are spawning the warden. And yeah, I imagine this is going to be a bit chaotic, so let's go. All right, so I've spent a few hours in this deep dark, wooling everything that I can and collecting as much treasure as I can. And I gotta say, I'm really happy with what we have caught today. Bunch of diamond gear. This is obviously our diamond gear from earlier, but we got a bunch of pants. We also got these ward armor trim, and we got the silence armor trim, a bunch of enchanted books that we're gonna have to go through. I think we got a bunch of these swift sneaks here, which is super cool as well. But yeah, we got a ton of cool items, and we actually were able to get a warden stuck on this ladder and kill it, so we got its head, which is super cool as well. But I think it is time for me to return home. This has been a ton of fun, and I actually think there's more here to find, but I've ran out of wool, so I think it's time to head back to our base. All right, so after about an hour of tree chopping, I gotta say I'm pretty happy with the progress around here. I don't know how many trees we're gonna end up taking out of this whole area, but yeah, it's definitely gonna be looking drastically different by the time we're done with this whole area. So this is a nice start for me at this point, but now I wanna change my attention to kind of creating a little bit of a pathway up to our starter base, because as you can see, right now it's a bit of a mess and it's not entirely easy to get up to our starter base. So I kind of want to create a nice little winding path up here. And for the texturing on this rock, I want to kind of bring in some deep slate, some tuft, a little bit of the mossy cobble as well as some other cobbles, and we'll probably bring in some andesite to just to blend things up a little bit, and then throw a little bit of moss on top. And I think that'll kind of smooth out the top as we kind of approach our starter base. And then, like I said, just bringing in a little bit of a winding path here that kind of connects down into this level, I think it's going to look really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of progress on this and meet you guys back right here. All right, so a little bit of a progress update here. Like I said, we're bringing in those dark tones with our deep slate, and then I mixed in a little bit of the smooth basalt as well, just to kind of blend things in a little bit better. Also brought in a little bit of the pale moss into the tuft here. I think that's a really good blend there. And then on top of it, we have our stone, our cobblestone, and a little bit of andesite as well. I think it looks really, really nice. On top of that is probably where we're gonna blend in some more moss and probably bone meal that up a little bit just to make it look nice and fresh on top of this kind of rock face here. And then over here, like I said, we have this nice little winding path here that leads up to our doorway, which I think works really well, and I actually really enjoy this. We need to bring in a little bit more natural lighting with some lichen and things like that instead of just having torch spam around here, but I think everything is looking really, really nice. And obviously we'll probably bring in some stone buttons and everything like that as well, just to kind of tie everything in and make it look nice and natural. And then afterward, we'll extend the pathway down into this direction. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and start expanding into the right side here, finish up this left side, and kind of, like I said, bring in some moss on top. And I think that's going to look really, really nice. All right, finishing up our first landscaping job here. I gotta say, I absolutely love the way this feels when you kind of walk down this cliff side here, and I gotta say, it came out really good. I think there's a little bit of details and stuff that we could still bring into it. We need to get some lichen so that we can kind of light it up a little bit better at nighttime, but I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It fits the house really well. It kind of blends in with the house really nicely, and you can see I already started to expand out the pathway. We're just using cobblestone right now. I actually ran out of moss and mossy cobbles, so yeah, we're gonna just kind of continue this pathway with cobblestone for the time being, and we'll come back here and redetail things as we kind of continue to go on. But I absolutely love these cliffs here. I think it looks so gorgeous. It kind of stretches a little bit too far, I think, maybe, but I think it looks really good. We did add a lantern here on the stairs just to give ourselves a little bit of light as we come up, and we did do a little bit of bone mealing, but I want to be careful bone mealing the moss because I don't want it to expand too far. But I think there's like some little bits we could do. If we could bring in some small grass and kind of place it on top of all of these moss blocks and kind of just blend the moss into the stone a little bit better and into the environment rather than making it look so flat right now, I think that'll be really, really nice. But we're still early game here, still kind of getting the grind going with the materials and everything. And yeah, as nighttime kind of falls here, you can see those firefly bushes kind of being activated. I absolutely love that look. It looks so good. Obviously, moving forward, we need to remove this sheep pen here, and that'll open up that side a lot more. But right now, we're just kind of collecting some easy wool here, and I think we'll just leave that for the time being. But I do want to go ahead and start expanding out this road a little bit further so that we can kind of get into today's project, which we're going to be building over here on this little flat area over here, which does mean that we have a bunch more landscaping to do. I kind of want to push this back a little bit further, and like I said, bring that road out here, which means we're gonna have to smooth everything out along this kind of hillside here and bring that road right up into this area where we're going to be building a nice new XP farm. All right, so I got a little carried away with all of the landscaping, and I gotta say I'm actually really excited for it because yeah, it's really starting to shape up the way I want it to, and I'm really excited to start building in this area. As you can see, we kind of flattened out this area, got rid of our little sheep pens, and brought in a little wheat field with our little automated drone over here watering things up, making it grow a little bit faster, which I think looks so cool. And honestly, it's gonna look so beautiful once this thing right here, this lightning rod, oxidizes down so that it kind of matches the propellers. I think it's gonna look really, really nice sitting here. And yeah, we got that little red light on now so that it indicates that this thing is doing its job over this little wheat field. And I gotta say, this is actually so cool. It really starts to bring the technology in, you know, just from our house down into the fields and everything. And it's gonna be really fun to expand that across the whole valley here. I'm I'm actually thinking about adding another little wheat field in this area, or maybe some carrots or potatoes or something, just to continue expanding our fields here, and bringing another little drone over here, kind of watering this one as well. I think that'll look really, really cool. As you can see, I expanded the road all the way down into where we're going to be building in today's episode, over in this little flat area, where we have done a bunch of landscaping in this area as well to just kind of smooth things out. And then you can see I brought in this cliffside over here as well to match our house area here. I think it's looking really nice, and I think it's just going to tie. Ooh, I'm missing a couple blocks right there, but yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it just ties in the entire environment, and if we add that across different areas, probably like over in there as well, and then we'll have some boulders to match throughout the valley. I think it just kind of add some cohesion to the whole area. You can see over here as well, I started to add the road, but I ran out of cobblestone. So this road will be extending down into this direction as well. Just adding some forks in the road so that there's multiple pathways. We're not just building in one direction off into one area or anything like that. We can really expand into this entire valley. It's kind of my hope and dream for this whole place. So for this farm that we're going to be building, we're going to be using the Allay XP farm, which is really easy to do early game, and it's kind of overpowered as well. So I think this build's going to look really nice, and we're going to add some life to it as well with bringing in those kind of technological bits into this XP farm over here. And then we're going to add like a nice little library area where we could do our enchanting. But first, like I said, we need to grab some materials real fast. Starting with our oak tree need, we ventured off to a nearby oak forest where we've already started to take a lot of these trees away, and we're actually clearing out a major area now. And then it was down into our trial chamber and cave to grab up all the materials we needed down there. And then it was the final grind, turning about 4 stacks of dirt into mud, as we don't have a mangrove forest nearby, so we had to grab some bottles of water and do it the old-fashioned way. All right, so a little bit of a resource montage there, and I think we are all set to get started here. I think we got everything we need. We'll probably have to do a little bit of running around at some point to gather some smaller blocks and things, but I think we're all set to get this build started. So I'm thinking just a nice little modern house here that's going to kind of house our enchanting area, and then off to the side, we're going to create kind of like a technological silo that we can house our XP farm in. So yeah, let's get started here. Okay, and here we are with the bare bones of our building, and I gotta say I'm actually pretty happy with it so far. Obviously, we're gonna add some more details throughout it. Like I said, just the bare bones right now. But as you can see over here, we added this little bit of dilapidated silo on the edge of it. Looks like the earth is reclaiming it a little bit. We're gonna add some more technological pieces to this and kind of make it look like it's kind of all wired up and everything like that. Over here, we're gonna add kind of the same thing as well, and it's gonna have a nice little pop of character. But I'm actually really happy with this design because it's kind of matching the character that I'm looking for in this world. Kind of a mix between some technological pieces and some rustic kind of natural pieces as well. And in here is where we're gonna have our allays. So they're gonna be sitting right down in this hole, and we're gonna have like a splash potion of infestation. We'll be able to just kind of swipe a bunch of the silverfish and get all the XP that we need. This will obviously be a little bit more detailed on the inside as well, but I'm actually really excited for how it's going to come out. Obviously in here, we're going to add some more character as well. And then upstairs, I think is where we're going to add our enchanting table up here with some bookshelves and some more decoration. So before adding some more details, I think the next step is actually to go get the allays right now. And I'm not entirely sure where we're going to be traveling off to. I know that there is a villager outpost out in that direction. We saw it when we were coming back from the jungle biome on our boat. So I guess that's where we're gonna start. Okay. We've got some allays. Oh no. This isn't good. That did not work the way I thought it was going to work. Oh my god, let's get out of here. I don't even know where to go. Oh my god, they're still chasing us. Oh, I think we lost one. Holy smokes. I think if we give this guy an item, we don't need to give him a lead. They'll just follow us. Oh my God. Holy smokes. These guys are strong. Yeah, that guy's gonna follow us, so that's good. We can just run out of here. All we need is one, because we can like breed them using a music disc. So that's good. We can get out of here. Okay. I think we are finally... Oh my God. Why are these guys so fast? Whew. What? Holy smokes. All right, where did that guy go? There he is. Look at him. Nice. These are like my favorite mob in the entire game. They're so cute. All right. Whew. We just need to get you home, fella. All right, so we have returned home with our LA friends, and we've started to add some details to the outside of our house here. Obviously, we need a little bit more, but I'm actually loving the way this is coming together. You can see I'm starting to add all those technological pieces around this little silo, and it's kind of wrapping into the main house. But if we go inside, yeah, there's still a ton of decorating that needs to be done in here, but I have started to do a little bit. In here we have our LA friends. These guys are holding little XP bottles. I can let them off the lead and they'll fly around, because we have up here, we have a note block that keeps chiming, and that'll keep these guys around. So we're going to move these guys outside. They're going to float around the outside of the silo with their little XP bottles. And then down here we have a bunch more LAs that we just need to bring a water bucket in here. We have our buckets here, but we just need to grab a little bit of water. We'll splash it here, and then we can just attack this armor stand after they've been splashed with the potion of infestation, and that'll give us a ton of XP. So yeah, we just have to fill that up, press this note block, that'll send a pulse that launches the potion in there. These guys will get hurt, and yeah, we'll fill this up with the silverfish, and that's how we get all of our XP. But everything's starting to come together really well. I'm actually really excited for this, so we just need to finish up a little bit. But I wanted to bring you guys in just to kind of show a little bit of progress before we finish up here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one final look at the whole place, and I gotta say, I'm absolutely loving the way this is coming out. These trees are looking really good here, kind of framing out this building. And I got to say, all the little pieces hanging off the building is really kind of bringing it to life for me. On top of here, we added some solar panels. So at nighttime, this little lamp will actually turn on, adding some more life to the whole build. And yeah, we have our allays flying around with their little XP bottles. And if we make our way inside, well, it's still a little bit empty, but that's okay. We're going to continue to fill out this place as we get more materials. We're still a little early in the game here, so yeah, we need to collect some more materials up here, but that's okay. So right now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and add this water here. That's going to damage these guys, and that's okay. So then we can put these bottles in here. We can make this little note, and we can press this note. That's going to splash those allays. And yeah, there we go. We have our silver fist pumping out here. Now, all we have to do is attack this armor stand, and we're going to get all of the XP that we need. And there it goes. There it starts anyways. And you can actually see the shadows of the allays flying around above us as well. That's so cool. I think we're going to have to add a few more flying around with some more XP bottles just to give it a little bit more life out there. But this is amazing. We should be able to get all of the levels we need so fast. And with just one splash potion, we got ourselves all the way up to 37 levels. As you can see, we just liberated this village behind us, and we have a bunch of villagers below us now. We just need to transport these all the way across this mountain range here. All right, so we are home safe with our brand new villagers, and they look like they're having a bit of fun. So I'm half tempted to just leave them like this, but I'm afraid that some random skeleton is gonna get these guys. So we're probably gonna have to kind of build them up a little dirt box here, but they do look like they're having fun. I did go ahead and build ourselves up a little enchanting area so we can now enchant our gear, which we've actually done a little bit. As you can see, we have some protection, some swift sneak and unbreaking. We have some feather falling and some depth strider. We also have a little bit of blast protection and a little bit of aqua affinity. We did get fortune 3 on our pickaxe with efficiency and unbreaking. That thing is a beauty right now. I've also spent a little bit of time on a live stream. You guys can catch me live on Mondays and Wednesdays right now, around 6:30 Eastern time. But we spent a little bit of time on a live stream detailing out this road, adding a little bit of bushes here, some grass and some buttons. But I think everything's looking really good. I like using this gravel in this texturing of the road. I think it looks really good with the andesite and the cobblestone, and I'm kind of trying to use the mossy cobble sparingly throughout, and I think it just looks really nice throughout this whole area. And we also did a little bit more detailing up top here, adding a little bit of grass up on the mossy area, adding a few more buttons and a few more of the mossy carpets just to give it a little bit more texture up here. I think everything's starting to come together really nicely. Getting started here in today's episode, we have a few armor trims here that I want to make some duplicates of and get our armor trimmed up using these 3 here. But the problem is I don't think I have enough diamonds to duplicate them. Yeah, I only have 11 diamonds. I'm going to need a few more to duplicate those 3 templates and get a couple extras here. So I think we're going to jump down into the mine and grab a couple extra diamonds real fast. So after a short bit of time here, we got ourselves 29 diamonds. That'll bring us up to 40, which I think should be plenty. But we also got ourselves a bunch of coal, some redstone dust, some iron, and some gold. So that is a pretty successful mining experience for me. All right, so taking a look at our armor trims here, I think I already know what I want, and I want to do some gold trim. So for our helmets, we're going to be using the bolt armor trim. Our chest plate, we are going to be using the ward armor trim. For our pants, we're going to be using the silence. And for our boots, we're going to be using the bolt again, and I think this is going to look very snazzy. Yeah, I can't say so myself. I think that looks really cool, and I like the homage to the warden here on our chest piece. As if you guys didn't see, we've already taken down the warden pretty handedly, no problem at all. So I think that looks pretty sweet. All right, so now that we have vanity out of the way, it's time for us to get to doing a little bit of work around here. And in today's episode, I really want to transform this entire area around here, adding some new builds throughout and adding a ton of these custom trees, just bringing this whole valley to life. So the first thing I want to do is add a nice bee farm down here so that we can kind of texture up our roof. Right now, it is all just one tone of the copper. Adding a little bit of texture up there would be really nice, but we need honeycomb in order to do that. So yeah, let's go ahead and gather some bees, gather some material, and build up a nice farm right here. For this project, we're going to need this bamboo that I've been collecting here on our front lawn. I'm hoping this will be enough to get ourselves started. We also going to need a bit of this birch wood that we still have plenty left over. We also going to need a bit of this oak, some spruce, a little bit of this jungle. Hopefully this is enough. If not, we'd have some saplings that we can grow up real fast. We also have plenty of the deep slate that we can use. We actually have a little bit of packed mud left over. I'm hoping that will be, oh, okay, there we go. Actually, we have about 2 stacks, so that's plenty to get ourselves through this project. But I think the one thing that we're missing is terracotta. So we're going to have to grab some clay and melt that down so that we can turn this into yellow terracotta. Starting out this building, I carved out the ground so that we could continue our cobblestone road, bringing our slabs in so it makes it a little easier to traverse before starting to smooth out the land for our build here. For the building itself, we're using all of the materials that we just mentioned, mixing in these kind of red and yellow tones, which I think go really well together. And then again, using that yellow terracotta as kind of just a splash on the walls. I think it looks really cool, especially with the yellow of the bamboo. I think that it just matches really well. And then continuing on by building up some custom birch trees here on both sides of the building, just to kind of frame things out and start to bring in that custom tree life to the entire environment. And then mixing the trees up, I think, is just a really nice touch here. All right, so we have our bee machine working here, and right now I'm just breeding up these bees as best as I can, and then I'm using a little bit of honeycomb that we have gathered so far to make up a couple extra beehives. That way we can fill up this whole area because we didn't get a full amount of the bees' nests. So we're just gonna do a little bit of breeding, get these finished up, and then we'll enclose it so that these bees do not escape, and we'll do a little bit of work around here to make it look a little bit better. All right, the bee farm is fully operational now, and I gotta say, I absolutely love the way that this came out. I love these two large birch trees here, kind of framing the building itself, and then we obviously have this nice little bush in the road, kind of splitting things up, and a little bit of detail to the outside as well. If we make our way around over here, you can see we have this little pump kind of dispensing out here to the outside. I want to fill these up with some of the honey blocks, but I think this looks really cool as like kind of like a little catching area and a little dispenser area for the honey. I think that's really cool. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Right now, I want to add some more trees to the outside of this area, but we're gonna have to do a bunch more resource gathering because I'll kind of want to fill this whole valley with custom trees. And so yeah, that's gonna be kind of the next steps. But before we get to that, I want to add some more buildings that are going to house our new villagers. Starting by collecting all of the birch leaves that I could so that we can continue to make more of these custom trees throughout the entire landscape using all of the birch leaves. And then continuing by chopping all of the trees themselves just to make some space for ourselves to continue our building. Following that up by doing a bit of landscaping, you can see we have these massive holes in our landscape here, so we have to patch those in and then continue the cobblestone road as well, smoothing things out on the backside here so that we can build a nice little farm area for our villagers in the future. All right, so now we have this area terraformed and ready to be built on. We just need to do a little bit more resource gathering. Starting by grabbing all of our stone materials that we're going to need, I jumped back down into our caves that we have been making a complete mess of and continued making a mess of the area. Before jumping over to where we've been collecting all of our oak wood, which we ended up collecting more oak wood, but you can see here I am just planting some of our jungle saplings and collecting more just to kind of buy myself some time and space there. Before journeying off to a nearby spruce forest, which I've again been destroying all of the materials in the area and continue to do so here. And then I was down into our trial chamber to collect up all of the copper that I could. I'm trying to just grab as much materials at this point as I can in kind of one fell swoop so that I don't have to continue to keep running down here and collecting more. And then it was time to finally get started building. You can see I'm using all of the stripped birch wood, bringing in some white stained glass as well, as just to kind of match the tone of the building, and then continuing to build up the roof with our spruce trim and our copper. And then it was on to the second one, building a more of a foundation for this one using our stone, kind of cobblestone, and our mossy variants as well. And then kind of matching the tone of the actual building itself to the first building. All right, so here we go. We got two brand new buildings here kind of framing out this pathway down this hillside to the left. These are going to be housing our farmer villagers where they're going to be collecting carrots and potatoes, and those are kind of being stored down here as well. So I think these are going to be all right for our village here as we continue to expand. Obviously need a ton more detail throughout this, and then we need to kind of plant our farms for them to harvest. So I think that's our next steps. We're going to just do a bit of more detailing throughout these buildings, bring in some custom trees, get our farmers set up, and start collecting. All right, so we've added some more details around our buildings, and we're actually ready to start moving these villagers into their little pods. So let's free these guys, get them on a tether here, and let's move them over. Oh. All right, don't die. Let's get this guy over to our first area here. The interiors of these buildings are pretty ugly, so don't judge me. So there we go. We got our first villagers in place. We should actually flip this staircase back around. There we go. So this guy should be able to collect some carrots or potatoes and bring them over, throw them into here. And we have a barrel underneath here to catch it. So that is a good start for me. We'll obviously have to come back in here and lay the carrots down and stuff. But We have our first villagers in place here, so that is fantastic. And he's actually a farmer. We should probably lock this in. We might have to roll those so that we can get some carrot trades or something. But now I got to figure out how to get out of here. All right, we're good. We're good. All right, let's go move these other villagers into this house. All right, and there we go. Nothing to it getting these villagers in place here. I am a little concerned with this field where it's on this hill. It's going to get trampled for sure, but I'm hoping where I kept this close by, he won't wander all the way over there and won't stampede the whole thing. But we do have this kind of flatter area up here, so at least some of the crops will be saved. And again, he should be able to just throw these into this barrel here. So that is perfect. So the next steps we need to do is just plant these fields. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take one last look here with shaders on as we start to wrap things up. And I got to say, I'm really happy with the way this whole area is starting to shape up with our brand new custom trees kind of framing our pathway down into here. We have our nice new villager houses, which I understand could use some more detailing and are a little shapeless. They're just kind of large squares with a little bit of detail on them, but I think that's okay. They are just serving a function at this point with our villagers in here collecting carrots and potatoes. So I think that is all right for now. We also have a little bit of life with the spore blossoms here kind of producing their little bit. So it does bring a little bit of life to the area. Obviously, we need to do some more bone mealing and some more, small details throughout the whole area. But I absolutely love the way that this whole area is starting to shape up. As we make our way over to our brand new bee farm, you can see we added a nice new honey tree, which I have to say, this is one expensive tree, not only with the honey blocks, but with the gold blocks in there as well, just giving it a little bit more of that yellow color. I absolutely love this tree, and I can't wait to bring a few more of these throughout the whole area. Again, very expensive, but I think it's totally worth it. I think it's such a nice tree, but I'm absolutely happy with the way this whole area is starting to shape up. I can't wait to detail out this road, add some more bush and bone meal this area along here, continue the road off in that direction as well as down below here and off towards our XP farm. I think it's just going to be such a fun area once we kind of get it to where we want to. And as we make our way down here, guys, you can see I've already started to do a bit of clearing for today's episode. But before we venture off to relocate some villagers, we need to set up a bit of a villager breeder underneath where we're going to be building our villager trading hall today. So we're going to be digging out a bit of a cavern underneath this area here. Taking a moment here to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. My goal is to reach 2,500 total subscribers by the end of the year, which means I need another 1,200 subscribers. So if you haven't already, press that subscribe button. It's quick, doesn't cost anything, and best of all, it tells YouTube to continue to promote my channel, which helps me a ton. So thank you. All right, so everything is coming into place here. Right now, we're gonna have this area be where our villagers are gathering carrots or something. They'll breed. The babies will wander into this spot here. We'll have a bunch of beds here so that they'll come over in this direction. They'll fall down into a water source that'll push them off into this direction. And hopefully they'll get stopped right here. We'll put some glass here, and we'll probably have to put a water source right here to push them into this block. Underneath here, we'll have our minecart system that'll shoot that up and catch the baby or the villager that's in this block here, and then they'll shoot them back up this staircase into this holding area, which we're going to probably expand a little bit in this direction here. That way we can have a zombie that will turn all of the villagers into zombie villagers. We can store them in like little pods here that we can then cure them all. And yeah, I think that should work pretty well. And then after that, they'll shoot back off into this direction and back up over here that we can then transport them into our trading hall. So I think this is a really good start. I want to go ahead and get the crops put in, the beds put in, and then like the water source and the minecart system down there before we bring any more villagers in here, just because I think it'll be a bit of a pain to get the villagers working while I'm trying to get the system to work. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. A bit of tinkering around here. We finally got our first villager, and there he goes. Okay, let's go see if our little catch chamber area is working. I think we're probably gonna have to adjust this. Okay, yeah, he came down. Okay, so we have a minecart in here. I think we're gonna have to adjust this rail system. I'm not sure that this is gonna catch him. No, it does not. Okay, we're gonna have to adjust this a little bit. I think we have to put the rail through here. So it needs to be like kind of up top where he is. So probably gonna have to make a mess here and get this to operate. But before we continue on with this, I'm ready to head back surface side. Now that we have villagers being produced, I think it's time that we head back up top and do a little bit of landscaping. So the idea around here is to just kind of smooth everything out and kind of bring everything into a little bit more cohesive area, because it's kind of a little bit messy right now. We have things like this kind of poking about, and then I want to bring our road down from like this corner here. It's kind of hidden by our birch tree right now, but I want to bring that road all the way down into here. That way we can kind of be able to travel from our little village here all the way down into where we're going to be building our villager trading hall. All right, so we have our cobblestone road in place here now. Obviously, a ton of details still need to be brought to life here, but we have this nice cobblestone road in place so that we can kind of venture our way out to where we're going to be building our trading hall. So the next thing that we need to do is gather a ton of materials to build this thing up. But unfortunately, if you take a look at my tools, they might look all right now, but this is actually my third shovel, my second axe, and my second pickaxe. So I think what we need to do is snag a mending villager real quick and just kind of store him away until we're ready for him. Grab some mending books so that we can, heal up our armor and our tools, because even my armor is starting to get pretty worn down here. So yeah, I think what we need to do is capture a zombie at nighttime here, get him in there so that we can grab a villager and, do the whole business of curing him and stuff so that we can get ourselves a mending book. All right, so we're all set up here with our zombie in place. We have our villager that we can start rolling to get mending here. Guys, I totally forgot. So I was chasing around zombies for like an entire night trying to get them to pick up shears off the ground. I couldn't get one. I totally forgot that we can make name tags super cheap now. It's like a piece of iron. So we have Papa Zomb here that is going to be doing his job of turning our villagers into zombies for us. So we're going to start rolling this guy so we can get mending. And there we go. We have our mending. It's a little high right now because I had to clear out some villagers for our villager catcher thing down here. So he's a little mad at me at the moment, but that's okay. We have him locked in with some paper here. So he should survive this zombie attack. And then we can push him off and get a potion of weakness and a golden apple. And yeah, I think that should be all right. But since we have a couple other villagers down here and with one splash potion, we should be able to get multiple villagers. I think we're going to try to get Silk Touch as well and maybe see about getting something else. All right, so we have mending on most of our gear here. I have the books. I just need some levels to throw on these last couple of items. But I did notice that my allays in their little tub over here vanished. They shouldn't despawn, so I'm not entirely sure where they went. So I'm working on replacing those now before we can splash them again and get some more levels. However, I'm going to need to do a ton of resource gathering, and we have to go to the Nether. So I built up this mecha over here to hold our Nether portal, and I have to say I am super happy with how this came out. It's such a fun build and such a unique idea for me in terms of where a Nether portal can be housed. I think it just came out so good. We have to turn on these lights still, but I think it just came out so fun and like unique, like I said. But I absolutely love this thing, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. If you have a name for this mecha, let me know. I would love to have that and kind of display it somewhere if we can. That'd be super cool. But yeah, I absolutely love this. Hello. But like I was saying, we are going to need some materials from the Nether, so I had to build this thing up. Right now, we don't have a good way into it. I need a slime block launcher that can get us up into this portal. I just don't have the slime blocks at the moment. So I'm going to scaffold up here and get on into our Nether portal. All right, coming back from the Nether now, I added a little bit of detail out front of our crawler here, just bringing in some stone and doing a little bit in the pathway here, and then kind of creating nice flower beds around here. I kind of want to bring like a nice large flower bed area with a lot of this like grass detail in here and everything, with our bushes and some rocks and everything, just to add some life around this crawler. And I think that'll look really, really cool in the end, especially if we just expand this really wide. I think that's going to look really cool. And then in the center here, to get up to our portal, I added just a little slime block launcher here so that we can jump up here and get into our portal. I think that's going to be just fine for us. I think it's just such a cool little detail and adds a lot of life around here. And yeah, I think once we just kind of continue to expand this, it's going to look beautiful. But now I need to get on to gathering some more resources for our build. I just wanted to take the time to add a little bit of life around here. While we gather some resources, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of establish and talk about the lore behind our world for the first time. So for me, I'm calling this world the All Wild. It encompasses everything from ecofuturism to cyberpunk metropolises to our classic medieval fantasy that Minecraft is so fond of. But focusing on this area in particular, I'm calling it the Elder Grove. It's a sanctuary where nature and technology coexist harmoniously. It's nestled deep within the heart of an ancient forest. It serves as both a hub for eco-futuristic innovation and a repository for age-old wisdom. Solar panels and automated drones worked in tandem with natural ecosystems to ensure sustainability and conservation. Mecha Guardians patrol the grove, maintaining balance and protecting the sacred grounds from threats. These towering machines are not just tools, but revered companions, embodying the spirit and coexistence between humans and nature. Alright, so now with the lore out of the way, we are ready to start building up our villager trading hall right here. And we have all of our materials, as you guys saw us gathering here just a moment ago. We are mostly going to be going with the stripped birch logs here, but with some accents from the dark oak. We got some pale wood in here, some jungle, some mangrove, and just a bunch of other materials as we're going to be building this thing up. And yeah, like I said, it's mostly the stripped birch here, but I think it's going to look really nice. I know we're using a lot of stripped birch throughout this whole region so far, but I think it's really going to look nice as kind of just a large staple here in this valley as we continue to build here. So I think without further ado, we are ready to get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, obviously a ton of work to still do here, but I think this is a good spot to kind of take a break and talk to you guys about the build a little bit further, because honestly, I love this build. It looks so cool. It's a very large building for our trading hall, but I think it's just kind of a natural, it fits in the environment really, really well with all this birch wood, and then bringing in this little bit of jungle and our copper blocks as like a little bit of a design throughout the whole building. We have up here, like I said, still need a little bit of block placement, but just bringing in that little bit of design to break things up using the dark oak as well. And you can see we're adding a little bit of green with our bushes and leaves and everything. I think it looks so fun, and just like such a exciting building, I think, as you kind of approach. And the large dome on top obviously is such a cool touch as well. But yeah, we need a ton of work on the inside still going strong here, a couple hours into placing blocks, but we'll add a bunch of the red tones in here with our mangrove wood, which I think is going to look really nice. And then we're going to stack things here on the edges with our villagers, and I think it's going to look really fun. And as you enter the building, just having those trading posts kind of all around you is a really cool touch. And then we're going to add a bit of a water column here up to the second floor. I don't have any plans for the second floor just yet, but I think it's going to be nice having that open area up above where we can do things later on. Once maybe new blocks or something gets added to the game, we can kind of return here and continue building up there. But I just wanted to bring you guys in to kind of show you a progress update, and now we can show you guys the finished product. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the finished product where we're going to be housing all of our villagers. And I got to say, I'm so happy with how this came out. Look at all this life and all this color in here. It feels so fun to just kind of wander around. And yeah, like I said, we're going to have all of our villagers kind of stacked up in these walls here. And I think it's just going to be so cool once we fill it out with all of our cured villagers. And we're going to have a bunch of librarians. We're going to have a bunch of stone cutters and things like that, just so that we can mix things up and have all the materials that that we need in this area. But as you guys can see, I brought in some mangrove wood in here to kind of just brighten things up with all the reds. We have some of this copper in here. I'd like to see this age down a little bit, but I think it looks really good right now. We also have a bunch of extra lanterns. We need some lanterns here, but I ran out of material, so we're gonna have them kind of like this, with each pod having its own lantern. I think that's gonna look really nice. And we also added some of these pots here on the wall just to add some light on the walls as well, and then bringing in those little details into the walls. I think it looks so fun and cool in here. But if we make our way upstairs here in our water elevator, it's kind of unfinished up here. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do. I did add these kind of coverings, these little awnings here and over here, just to add a little bit of shade and a little bit of life up here, but I'm not entirely sure what else I want to bring up here. Like I said, we could bring some villagers later on if we want to, or we can find something else. If you guys have any ideas in the comments below, let me know what we could put in up here. I think it'd be really cool to have something up here that can kind of draw our eyes and bring us up here as needed. But I think it looks so cool, and I'm really happy with how this, as I missed that water, I'm really happy with how everything turned out up here. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, our brand new floating turbine up in the sky, and you can actually see it moving up there right now, which I think is so cool. We also brought in some more flowers around our mecha, just kind of spreading that out, making it feel more natural there, and I think it looks really, really nice. We'll probably continue on with that a little bit more as we go on. And I also brought in some of the grass and bone meal that up to our brand new custom tree in front of our trading hall, just kind of blending it all in. And I had to say, I am absolutely pleased with how this came out. I think it looks amazing. Taking a closer look at our brand new custom tree here, and I'm actually really happy with how this came out. This is the first time that I'm trying to do this kind of split design with all these different branches kind of going in different directions. Usually I kind of build them straight up and then kind of the canopy off the top of the trees, but this is the first time I've done this kind of split action here with the branches, and I'm actually really happy with how it came out. It was a bit tricky, but I think it came out really well. You can also see I'm using a ton of fence gates, and these actually aren't connecting to anything. There's a lot of like floating bits to the kind of the canopy of this tree, but I think it works really well. I'm not entirely sure. You guys will have to let me know in the comments below, but I think it looks really good. I'm actually really happy. Like I said, the first time I've actually done this kind of split design, so the canopy could maybe use a little bit of work. It looks a little flat on this side here, but I think it came out really good. I'm actually really happy with this entirely. In today's episode, we're going to be extending this road all the way up to this hilltop, where we're going to be building ourselves an eco-futuristic skyscraper to house an iron farm and all of its material production. As we get started here doing some tree clearing, I just wanted to take a second to kind of talk about ecofuturism, because I don't want it to be confused with solar punk. Solar punk actually relies on more of a community focus, where ecofuturism relies more on the high technology of the world, which is where we get our little drone and our mecha portal that we've created recently. So ecofuturism kind of allows for that technology and for large corporations to still flourish, where solar punk relies mostly on tree growth and community focus to kind of let the world kind of flourish and continue to grow. Okay, we have about a double chest of birch wood chopped now. So now we need to dig out a space where we're going to be putting our iron farm underneath this hillside here. We're going to have a nice skyscraper on top of it where all the materials are going to be flowing into. So over here, we're going to dig kind of like a doorway in here, and then we're going to be kind of digging out this whole hillside so that we can house this iron farm. Okay, so we have almost our first layer done here, and luckily on the back side of this, it's pretty open over here, which does mean that we're probably gonna have to do some spawn proofing over in these little gaps so that our iron golems don't end up going up there. But we're gonna have to do this amount of digging about twice more downward here. So yeah, I gotta go heal up my pickaxes and get back to the grind. All right, there we go. We have now carved out the entire area where our iron farm is going to be going. And yeah, this is going to produce more iron than I'm going to need for sure, but it'll be great for our redstone projects in the future. Anytime you need hoppers, dispensers, all that stuff. Actually, I don't know if dispensers take iron, but I know hoppers do. So we will definitely need the iron later on. So this will be fantastic. Realistically, I'd probably like to take this floor down maybe another 2 blocks or so. But I think this is good for now. now, what I need to do is go ahead and place buttons on all of this to spawn proof it and up in there so that no golems get spawned up in there accidentally. So yeah, we're gonna need about 2,000 buttons. So here we go. All right, we have done it. We have gone ahead and placed over 2,000 buttons in this whole area. We got some up there behind us there, and we got some directly above us in the ceiling area. And yeah, that was a ton of work to do. I actually ended up digging down a few more layers and placing all these buttons. So the next thing we need to do is actually go ahead and replace these torches with some redstone lamps, or the copper lamps rather, so that we have a nice glow on the floor and we can cover those up with buttons as well. And yeah, I'm really hoping that this works for spawn proofing the iron golems, because if not, that was a giant waste of time, but that's okay. We'll figure that out later. But now what I need to go ahead and do is build up the catch chambers and where we're going to be housing our villagers so that we can start moving them over and getting them in place. All right, so we've gone ahead and put the farm in place here, and you guys can kind of see what I'm working with here. I forget where I got this design, but I used it in my last Let's Play series, so I'm reusing it here, and it's really cool. So like each one of these pods is kind of tileable, so you can actually stack them like left to right here, or you can make this kind of diamond shape or crisscross shape, I guess, and they'll all just flow down into here where we will set our lava, and then underneath kind of where I'm standing is where we'll have our hoppers and stuff so that we can catch all of the iron and poppies and everything. So this is a really good design. I like this design a lot. It works really well. Again, I'm hoping that we have all the spawn areas safe so that they'll spawn up here and flow down. We need to get our villagers in their little pods here, and we need to get zombies on top of these pistons, so which means we'll have to turn off the pistons while we get them up there. But yeah, now we're gonna go ahead and move some villagers over here and get those in place so that we can get this thing running finally. All right, well, it is definitely working and spawning iron golems. I haven't actually caught if they're going down this water path or if they're spawning down below here. I haven't been paying close enough attention as I've been moving the zombies in place, but it's definitely working. So I think the next thing we need to do is put some lava in here with a kind of temporary storage, catching mechanism with hoppers and stuff. But I think it's going to work pretty well here. I do need to make sure that these guys aren't spawning down here. They might be spawning on some of these torches and stuff, so we'll have to take care of that, like I said. But I think this is working really well, so I'm going to go ahead and add the kind of lava chamber area here and see how well this does. All right, so now you can see this thing working in progress. We just lost a golem there. We have another one in the fire and another one entering it as well. So here comes another one. Oh my God, this thing is going to produce so much iron. This little bit of storage we have down here is not going to suffice, so we are going to have to figure that out. But I think that's the next step. So what I want to do now that this is working properly is actually return to the surface, do a little bit of terraforming, and start building a facility that is going to house all of this iron. And we're actually going to have to split out all of these poppies, like I said, get that bone meal moved over somewhere else. So without further ado, let's head surface side and get to terraforming. Okay, so I'm preparing to build up our iron facility over there, but I need a ton of glass. So I've actually come over here and started trading some carrots and some wheat with our farmer villagers over here to get a bunch of emeralds, and then come back over here and trade with these guys to get some glass. We're going to need a ton of glass, and we're going to need a ton of light blue dye to dye all of this glass, but we'll get to that momentarily. And other materials that we're going to need is a bunch of pale oak as well, and a bunch of other miscellaneous materials throughout the whole world. So I'm going to finish up trading here, and then I'm going to venture off and get those materials. Okay, and here is the rough outline of our skyscrapers here, where we're going to be housing all of our production iron. It's going to be coming up into these buildings, so I'm actually really happy with how this is coming out so far. I love these like bubble windows and all the details with all the different white blocks. I think it looks really cool. And then we also mixed in some moss in the mossy cobble, and then we're just going to kind of wrap this whole thing with a bunch of leaves and a bunch of grass and stuff, making it look like it's been taken over a little bit by the earth. I think it's going to look really, really nice. And then we're going to put a bunch of little details throughout the whole building as well. One of the main details that I'm really excited about is this area right here. I'm thinking about putting like a marquee or some type of neon sign that'll really demonstrate or really tell us what this building is. So I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to look really, really cool. However, these little holes need to be filled with some sea lanterns. So we're going to have to travel off into the ocean, find ourselves an ocean monument, and take down some guardians so that we can make some sea lanterns. Returning to our build here, I've gone ahead and added a ton of detail. Unfortunately, all this copper needs to oxidize down, and then we'll come back through with some honeycombs and kind of wax it to the degree that we want between the weathered and the fully oxidized. But honestly, it looks pretty cool with all the orange as well. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking with all the details in here. You can see we have a bunch of pipes, we have a bunch of mechanical bits on the sides here, and we obviously have our entryway with this sign that I was talking about. So it's a little bit difficult to see at this angle and during the daytime. One of the cool details here is the white stained glass. If you can see that, it actually spells out iron in the kind of Minecraft language. So we have this kind of semicolon, these 4 blocks here, and then we have this kind of J shape with a dot and another J shape here. So that actually spells out iron in the Minecraft language, which is, I think, is pretty cool little detail. Obviously, like I said, once we get up here, you can kind of see the detail of it a little bit better. And at nighttime, those sea lanterns shine through, make a really, really cool little look to it. All right, so now I have the collection system fully set up here. And yeah, it is a lot, but I think we're going to be producing plenty of iron in the future. So it is going to be totally worth it. And I've also gone ahead and kind of finished up some decorating around here. Again, a lot of this copper needs to continue to oxidize, but it's looking good for the time being. So let me take you guys kind of around here. Kind of starting at the front door, we have this nice little receptionist area, and we could add some benches in here to kind of hang out, and we can continue on. We have a nice little area here. We have a nice large painting, and I thought this was kind of a fun little detail, adding all of the different phases of iron as it continues to grow. We have a nice little copper golem statue, all kinds of bits and pieces in here that we've already seen. Again, adding some more bookshelves and some more decorations. And if we make our way on up here, we have a little bit of decoration. I kind of want to throw a bed in here and maybe some steps or something that we can look out of the windows for. But this is a awesome little AFK spot for us. And if we actually take a look, it should be working right now. And yeah, there it is. So it's actually a proper AFK spot up here in our kind of, tower suite area. And I think it looks really cool, and I think it feels really cool as well. So what I want to do, instead of adding trees, which is the typical thing to do for kind of landscaping and bringing it into the environment, I want to add a couple large industrial sized windmills that'll kind of tie in this area and make it look like it's a little bit more of that eco-futuristic, adding in all of the power generating for this whole project. I think it's going to look really, really cool. So I'm going to grab a couple more materials and get to that. All right, and here are our industrial windmills, looking very large here on top of the hillside, and I think they came out really, really cool here. Obviously, using a lot of the white tones, kind of breaking it up a little bit with the basalt here on the edge, kind of making it look like there's kind of, some electrical tubing going on, and obviously that is getting split off into different areas. Using a little bit of the yellow terracotta to kind of show a little bit of staining as well, and then up top having kind of that motorized mechanism up top with the copper. I think it looks really cool. And then using a little bit of gray stained glass throughout the blades just to kind of give it a little bit of motion. I think it looks really cool. And then obviously having the other two here kind of surrounding our iron farm here, it makes it look so cool on top of this hill. So I think what we need to do just to kind of like top it off a little bit is just go around and add a little bit of bone meal throughout this whole area just to kind of bring some grass back in and make it feel a little bit more alive. alive. I think that's going to be a nice touch to the whole area. And then obviously finishing up our road with a little bit of texturing throughout here, adding some slabs for our stairs, and then just waiting for everything to oxidize down is going to be such a nice piece. With just over 500 days in game, we have already built this amazing starter base, some villager farms, as well as a trading hall, a mass producing iron farm, and today we continue expanding our world by building an entire village to house our new wood farm. In today's episode, we're going to be building ourselves a brand new wood farm, which means we're going to need a bunch of bone meal, which is why I've gone ahead and built myself a moss farm here. So this is right now is currently only generating bone meal, and it's actually self-producing here as well. So we can keep this thing running with our little ender pearl stasis chamber here. This chunk will continue to be loaded, and this farm will be producing bone meal for a long time. Well, as long as we have bone meal anyways, but I think it should be well enough self-sustainable, and you can see it working right here. All of this moss is being generated into bone meal down here, and it is all going back into itself. And yeah, we got a little bit of bone meal right there already, and you can see another one just pop in. So I think we're just going to leave this thing running for a little bit and let it kind of generate a ton of bone meal, and we're going to journey off and build ourselves a brand new wood farm. So we've gone ahead and traveled about 2,000 blocks north of our base area into this mega taiga forest here that we have. And I think it's going to be a really cool area to kind of build ourselves a village to house our wood farm. And then we'll have a giant silo area that we can house all of our wood production. And that way we can kind of travel throughout the world for all of the different materials. It gives us a reason to move around in the world rather than just staying in our single base area. It gives us a reason to kind of venture out and see the other biomes and stuff. So I think without further ado, I'm going to jump into a time lapse and start clearing out some of this area so that we can build ourselves a village as well as our wood farm. All right, so we've gone ahead and cleared out a massive area here, and I'm feeling really good about this right now. But I need to do a bit of landscaping around here because, yeah, we got a bunch of these boulders, and the ground itself is not very flat. Obviously, we have this large lava pool here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get into a little bit of landscaping before we start building. All right, so everything is starting to look pretty good around here. We definitely need to continue doing some work down here because I'm thinking about adding a few houses down here just to kind of populate the area and then build a nice little road going all the way up through here, which is definitely going to take a little bit, which is why we're going to need to continue building our way up through here and smoothing out the landscape. But as we make our way up to the top, I think this is actually looking pretty clear. Like I said, we still need to deal with this lava pool, but we'll do that in a minute. But the area itself is looking nice and clear now for us to start building. So what I'd like to do is actually build up the wood production farm here because we're going to need a ton of wood for this area. So might as well build the farm now, produce all the wood that we need to build with, and then build this area out, make it look real nice. All right, so we have the farm in place here, and this is a farm by ENX04. I'll link it in the description of this video, but this is a super simple farm, and we can get like 12 different trees and mushrooms from it. So I think it's going to be really good here early game. But the only thing we need to do is go ahead and set up the catch chamber so that we can move the materials into some storage. I think that's going to be all right there. We also just need to go back and get a ton of bone meal so that we can, you know, bone meal up some saplings here. So I think that's going to be really good and really helpful for us here early game. But like I said, we got to go ahead and set up the storage for it. And I think we'll be ready to rock and roll. All right, so I've run this farm for a little bit and I'm starting to get a better idea of how it works. I didn't realize that the brown mushroom blocks don't actually drop from the TNT. It only drops like the small mushroom sapling basically, which is fine. We'll just have to expand this at a later date and kind of set up a more manual area for mushroom collection, which I think is totally fine. And I think that'll work out for us, no problem. And I think this farm is working pretty well for our oak blocks and things like that. So right now what I want to do is actually gather a little bit of materials and start building our first build in this area, which is just going to be a bit of a building, a little bit of a sawmill, if you will, and give us a little bit of a passageway out back here to our farm itself. And then in the side, we can house things like saplings and stuff like that as like a bit of a storage area for those things. I think it's going to look really cool, and I'm really excited for it. We're going to be using a mixture of the mangrove, a little bit of netherrack, and our oak logs all stripped for the main area of the building. I think it's going to look pretty cool. You guys will have to let me know once it's complete, but I am actually really excited for it. Again, I think it looks pretty cool in this area. So without further ado, let's build our first build here. All right, here we have it, our first build here in this new area, and I gotta say I'm really happy with how it came out. I really like this splash of red amongst all of the oak. I think it looks really, really cool and really unique. You can see I'm adding little bits of signs here to kind of spread it out and kind of create a little bit of a smudge effect with all of the red. We're obviously using a little bit of terracotta as well as a nice little blend between the red and the oak. I think it looks really, really cool. And then just adding a bunch of details throughout with a bunch of signs and fence gates and all kinds of things like that as well. The one thing I'd like to do moving forward is get some lichen to put on the backside of these windows where they're orange right now. It adds a nice little blue glow through them. I think it looks really, really nice, but we're going to have to wait a little bit before we get ourselves a lichen farm, and then we can come back here and tackle that at a later date. We're also using the non-stripped mangrove as a little bit of a break in these kind of support beams. I think it looks really cool. It's a little bit chaotic, but I think it kind of works really well. I'm not entirely sure, but you guys will let me know in the comments below. And then obviously this is a nice little walkway through out here to our wood chopping farm, and I think it's really cool that we just kind of have like this nice little path. We'll have some custom trees around the surrounding area, and we'll probably expand our collection storage a little bit as well. Probably add like a little building there so it's not just a trapdoor on the ground, but I think it's going to frame out this area really well and kind of create kind of just a picture frame for us to kind of walk into as we use this farm. You can also see I've done a little bit of detailing here on like kind of the walkway where we're going to be using our packed mud, a little bit of like these different stone variants, some coarse dirt, as well as the brown mushroom blocks. I think it's going to look really nice as we kind of expand this out into this kind of like courtyard area where we're going to have a couple more buildings, and then we'll transition into just like our regular stone and cobblestone road all the way down into where we're going to be building up a few more buildings here as well. But one of the issues that we are currently facing is the bone meal issue. Unfortunately, this moss farm just isn't producing the way I was hoping it would. It's basically using up 2 stacks of bone meal and producing 2 stacks of bone meal, so we're not actually getting any gains from this. And unfortunately, we just don't have a skeleton spawner at this moment, so we have to figure out a different solution for our bone meal problem. And that solution brings us here to the nether. You can see we have our portal right here, and we actually have a nether fortress right below us here as well. So I'm thinking what we could do is kind of build up a small temporary wither skeleton farm. I'm hoping we can get away with something simple that we don't have to clear out a huge section of the nether, but we'll see. I haven't ever done this before, so let me try to find a good 4-way intersection and see what I can come up with. Okay, so I found a really nice spot right here, which you can see we have some skeletons right above us. So this is going to be a bit of a pain to kind of build this while we kind of fend off these guys. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of preparation, but I think all we have to do is kind of expand these corners out a little bit, trap a hoglin in a trapdoor like prison, and then these guys will be aggroed by the hoglin, and then we can drop them down into like some holes, kind of like we do with our villagers, and then just kind of build a like kill chamber down below here. So I think this is a really good spot. I think I'm going to build one right here and one right there and see if we can get them to kind of funnel down into a single spot using some pistons or something. I think this is going to get a little bit complicated, but let's see what we could do. All right, so I think we are all set here. These are our little chamber areas. So we'll get some hoglins to stand on these torches. The skeletons will get aggroed and fall into these little areas. We just have to open up these areas and kind of build up the like catch chamber so that they can all kind of flow down into a little area over here that we can kill them. So yeah, I think this is all set. I just need to go get some hoglins over into these little areas and continue to build out the little catch chamber and kill area. So this is perfect. I'm just going to go get some name tags so that these guys don't despawn and get them in place. Okay, so we've got everything set up here. You can see we're actually using lava that will push these skeletons down, which I didn't realize you could do, but that is how we're doing it. We have our 2 chambers here, and you can see we have some wither skeletons, but unfortunately they're getting stuck on the walls. I think what we could do to improve that would just be increasing the number of skeletons being able to spawn in the area right now. But as you can see, we have a bunch of other mobs spawning. So I was hoping we could get away with not spawn proofing, but it looks like we're going to have to spawn proof this area a ton, which is unfortunate because I don't think we're going to be able to get to that today. Maybe we could do a little bit of spawn proofing, but I don't really want to spend too much time doing that. So unfortunately, it looks like we're back to the moss farm at this time to try and improve that as best as we can. All right, so I went ahead and made this so it's all going into one composter and producing bone meal that way, because I was thinking maybe we're losing a little bit with spreading it out across these 7 different composters, but we're still losing a small percentage of bone meal. I put in just under 3 stacks of bone meal, and now we just have about 2.5 stacks. So we are losing a little bit bone meal still. I'm not entirely sure why that is, or why this wouldn't be, self-sustaining. I thought it was. So we're missing something. I'm not entirely sure what it is. If you guys know in the comments below, I would really appreciate any advice you guys could give me on producing a large quantity of bone meal. We've tried a couple different things today, and it just doesn't seem to be working out for me. So I've gone ahead and harvested my 2 wheat fields, and I'm using all those seeds to produce a bit more bone meal so that we can continue building our wood chopping farm. Okay, we're back here at the wood farm, making some more progress around here with our brand new custom tree, kind of inspired by a redwood that you would see in like the west coast, northwest of America. I absolutely love the way this came out, and there's a ton of details here, mixing in a bunch of the mud walls and our fence gates, our fence posts, a bunch of trap doors, as well as some of the dripstone. We have a little bit of tuff down here, kind of acting as some wider roots as well. I absolutely love the way this came out, and we're going to build a ton of these in this area as well. And I think it's just a really, really fun and cool tree. The only thing I wish is that the oak leaves didn't change so much with the biome tint, but I think it still works. And I think once we get some more builds in here to kind of cover it up a little bit more, I think it's going to be a nice piece in the backdrop of this whole village. So I'm going to continue making some progress around here. We need a ton more materials to continue building around here, and unfortunately I'm already behind schedule, so I'm just going to get making some progress here today and bring you guys back with some updates. Getting started by building the village area for this whole build, using the same build pattern that we have been with the red splashes along with the oak and the dark roofs. I think they look really nice. And then expanding on the back side of those with some custom terrain, bringing in a custom waterfall, using a bit of moss and stone for the rocks around it. Okay, let's go ahead and add the water, and hopefully this will work all the way down. So far, so good. Oh yeah, it's looking good. Oh, we're gonna make it all the way. Come on. Perfect. This is perfect. And then just to finish this off, I think I'm gonna bring it up one more layer. I think that'll look really nice as well. Okay, this area is looking really nice now. With the village and the waterfall out of the way, it was finally time to get started on the storage for all of our different wood types. Going with a more traditional barn style here, and then just copying the same color palette that we have throughout this whole village now, and then expanding this thing as large as possible. This wood farm can produce 12 different wood sets, including the warp stem and the crimson warp stem blocks that we can get from the nether. So this thing needed to be very large in order to house the different wood types here. On the interior, we brought in some more of that mangrove as just a nice little pop of color, as well as some dark oak accents to kind of contrast it a little bit. With just over 100 days spent on this project, I am happy to say that this village and our storage for all of our wood types is finally complete. Taking a look at our storage building now, I am happy to say that this is complete because this project has been massive from the beginning, and I am absolutely happy with how it all turned out. With our copper grates in the window, we have the nice red splashes against all of the oak, obviously bringing in the mangrove logs with our stripped spruce logs as well, and I'm absolutely pleased with how this came out. We also added a little bit of dark oak in here and brought the ceilings up nice and high with all of our lanterns on the roofs here. Also brought in some sea lanterns here on the lower part, and I have to say I am actually really pleased with this design. I think it looks really cool. You can see here on the sides we have little silos for all of our different wood types. You can see up above here we have our birch, we have our oak, we have our spruce and our acacia, some jungle over here, and our cherry blossoms as well. So all of the wood types in this storage unit here are the wood types that we can gather from our new farm. Again, just tying in all of the mangrove in here as well. I think it's just a nice little touch. And if we make our way on the back sides here, we have more storage expanded in here. This is where our nether wart will go. We don't actually have anything for this slice here. I just put the spruce up there for temporary, but with the new poplar wood coming out, I think this farm should work with that. So maybe we'll turn that into a poplar area as well. And then on the back side over here, we have the red mushroom there and the brown mushroom here. And again, this area right here not having anything assigned to it currently because the farm isn't able to gather any of that material. So we'll house everything else in this area, and I gotta say I'm really happy with this build. I think it's such an amazing build, and obviously there's a ton of space, so when we have those large projects where we need to strip a ton of wood, we can obviously put it down in here and strip all that wood in this area, and I think that is going to work out really well. Taking one final look around the area, I'm really happy with how these large redwood trees came out. Our little wagon depot over here, I also gathered some wood and kind of put it down over there. We have some stacks of lumber over here as well near our little lumber mill. We have some small details throughout here, and obviously if we make our way on back towards the farm, we are just surrounded by all these custom trees, and I think it looks gorgeous. And then making our way down towards the path here, we built one more custom building over here on top of this hillside. So now we have a few extra houses down here. I think it's going to be really nice. Obviously, we want to spread a few more custom trees throughout this whole area, but I think it came out really well, and I'm really happy with this whole build. Like I said, just over 100 days spent here building all of this up, so I'm really pleased with this whole area, and I can't wait to continue to come back here to gather wood. We're going to need to get ourselves looting 3 on our sword so that we can get ourselves at least 12 ender eyes. And there's our looting 3 book. We just got to go put this thing on our sword. With looting 3 now on our sword, it was time to head through our nether portal into the nether itself in search of a warped forest that we could slay some endermen. All right, well, I haven't found the warp forest yet, but I did just find a bastion, and I don't know if I feel up to it at the moment, but I think we need to get in here to find the netherite template. We have a ton of netherite just from doing some mining for quartz. It's so honestly, getting the netherite template right now would be awesome. So I might try to sneak in there, but it looks like we have a lot of adversaries around here, so this is going to be a little bit dangerous. Oh my god, I thought we were going to get stuck in a death loop there, and we got our netherite template. That is amazing. Okay, we definitely need to get out of here because that's all we want, and I don't want to get stuck in a death loop, so let's get out of here. With the netherite template now in hand, there was only one mission left in the nether, and that was to find the warp forest, which we were able to do, and then slay enough endermen to get ourselves 12 ender pearls, which was actually super easy with the looting 3. I think we only had to take down 3 or 4 endermen, so it went really well for us. All right, we've got our 12 pearls. We just got to stop by and grab some blaze powder so that we can turn these things into eyes and get out of here. All right, so returning home now, we have 18 diamonds plus 18 diamond ore. We're not going to touch this regular diamond ore, just the deep slate stuff, but we have 21 ancient debris as well as a single strap already. So I think what we're going to do is smelt up this, get all of our diamonds, and see how many templates we can make, and then we will see if we can upgrade all of our armor. All right, I couldn't help myself. I needed to collect some more diamonds to make my gear look that much better. Using chunk base, I found the nearest swamp with a ender portal kind of connected to it and headed my way out there. And then I dug deep into the ground to find the ender portal itself, placing our eyes of ender and finally entering the end itself. And with an epic battle, we finally took down the ender dragon, marking our completion of the game. There it is. Let's go. Let's go. We did it, ladies and gentlemen. We took down the dragon. All right, let's head back, get some gear, and then let's go get our wing. Now with the dragon defeated, we have some supplies in hand. It was time to look for an end city, which we found pretty quickly, and luckily this one had a pair of wings for us, so we defeated some shulkers and gathered our wings. All right, so I have returned back home with our brand new wings. I've actually gone ahead and put Unbreaking 3 and Mending on these things already, so we are good to go. So for the rest of this episode, I want to go ahead and build ourselves a village around our end portal. That way, when we return there, we have something to actually visit. And I think we're going to use a bunch of deep slate. But unfortunately, we don't have any right now. And yeah, it takes a while to actually mine that. So what I'm going to do, since we've been spending a little bit of time in the nether, I've actually gathered 3 wither skeleton skulls already. So I think we're going to return to the end real quick and kill ourselves a wither. Using the easy method of digging out a large hole beneath the end portal that returns us to the overworld, I laid down our soul sand and our wither skulls. Again, this is just a super easy method to gain the wither star really quick without any pain kind of attached to it. It's kind of a cheaty way to do it, but I think it's just a, it's a method that you can use, so why not use it? Next, I returned home and went to our iron farm to get all of the blocks of iron that we need for our full beacon. And then it was off to our newly formed wood chopping farm to gather all the wood we're going to need and strip all of it down to its stripped log form. And then it was finally time to light our beacon for the first time and gather a ton of deep slate. And then I traveled to a nearby mangrove forest to gather a ton of mud that we're going to need for this project. One last ingredient that we're going to need to top this all up is a bunch of these skulk blocks. I love this little shimmering effect that it creates, and I think we're going to use it really neatly. All right, I think we are all set to get started on this project, and I'm really excited for it. What I'm thinking is we're gonna have to do a bunch of tree clearing here and do some landscaping to kind of clear out the whole area so that we can kind of have a nice blank canvas to work on. And I'm actually inspired by, I think it's Austronesian. It's kind of like over in Asia and Australia area, and they have these beautiful stilted villages, and I'm really inspired by those. So I'm thinking we're gonna have some stilted houses kind of living on top of the water, and it's gonna be a really cool aesthetic around here. And then where our end portal actually is, I'm thinking we do something like ritualistic and make it kind of surrounded by the village itself so that we can get down into the portal. I think it's gonna be a really cool project, and I'm really excited here. So what I'm thinking for first things we need to do are clean out all of these trees so that we can really see the landscape. As for the landscaping itself, we gathered up a ton of these oak leaves before we started chopping down the trees themselves, spreading a nice area out so that we could kind of expand this village without feeling too constrained to the environment. And then we got right into placing all of the mud. We actually had to dig out all of the dirt because of the shallow area and replace it all with the mud, which took a ton of effort, but I think it's going to look really good in the long run. And then mixing in the skulk to give the mud a little bit of an effect. And then we got into building out the roadway for this village using a bunch of campfires and oak trapdoors, just kind of mixing those in and extending it all the way across this kind of lake area that we're currently building on. And then we got into building our first build for this project using a bit of stripped spruce wood, the mangrove wood, and a stripped jungle wood, and then just creating this nice round shape for the build itself. All right, taking our first look here at the progress that we've made and kind of establishing the aesthetic that we're looking for. You can see I'm bringing in a ton of foliage here at the entranceway with our rooted mangrove blocks here, some bushes as well, and then just bringing in some stained glass with our brown candles. We also have a little bit of the small drip leaf and the cactus flower that we got. So this is looking really nice. I actually really like this look here, kind of along the edges of the waterway. We'll also have it kind of piled up along little bits of the bridge as we continue to build out. But we also have our first building here. I built a nice little windmill here to kind of capture some of the wind as we're kind of bringing in that technological piece into this smaller build as well. I think this is a really cute little windmill here on the edge. And then the building itself, a nice little round building here, stilted off the ground, and then bringing in some other pieces like this little trap that we have here hanging off the edge. I think that's going to be a really cool little aesthetic to bring in throughout this whole area, kind of establishing that these people are fishermen and they also fish this little lake pond area. And I think it's going to look really, really cool as we kind of continue to build out across this bridge. This bridge itself is going to continue to stretch all the way over to that landmass, and I think it's going to be a really cool area. So we're just going to continue to build out around this bridge and bring in some more buildings in themselves and just establish kind of the lifestyle that these people are living. At first, I kind of wanted to make things a little bit dreary here in this swamp area, but it just didn't feel right. So adding bits of color around the area actually feels really nice, and it kind of just adds a life to the whole area. It doesn't have to be completely humdrum in this area. I think it actually looks really cool with a bunch of color and stuff. So we're going to continue to build out in that style, bringing in little pieces here and there to kind of bring some life to the whole area and just, yeah, make it feel natural and like it's being lived in. So without further ado, I'm going to continue building out all of the buildings around this area and extending this bridge all the way across to that landmass. All right, so we've gone ahead and finished up bringing all of the life and the detail into this area, and I'm really happy with how it came out. You can see it really feels alive. It feels like a village that you would want to kind of visit and live in. You can see we added like a little fishing boat here, a little fishing dock as well, a little trap under here with a little winch. We have little boats here kind of tied up, a little bit of color brought in. I also want to have some of this copper oxidized down a little bit more and do a little bit more detailing throughout this whole area, but I'm really happy with how everything is looking right now. You can see we have our nice large fish here winched up onto that little thing there. I want to bring in a nice sign here that says like Fish Mart or something. I'm not entirely sure yet. That's why it's still blank, but I think it looks really, really cool. And obviously we have this little area over here where these three houses are kind of crammed together. This is kind of my favorite spot with everything. And then we back here we have another little area here. These need to oxidize down a little bit, but this is a nice little spot to go fishing. And yeah, I just love all of the little detail, the little bit of life that's in this whole area. We obviously need to do some interiors to all of these houses, which I think would be a really fun project down the road. I think we could really do some really cool things here, and then we could expand out this area as well. This is kind of just a small little area compared to where I would like it to be at some point, but I'm really happy with all of the life and everything all brought in. You can see we added a bunch more of these kind of like cattails here throughout the whole dock, bringing in the rooted mangrove here. I think it looks really cool. We also have a nice little fishing vessel here that we could kind of sail around in the bog, and I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, now what I want to do is actually open up the area to where we're going to be kind of entering our portal from, which will be in this area right here. And I've kind of gone back and forth on what I want to do for this whole area and kind of how to incorporate the portal itself. And so I think what we're going to do is kind of level off this a little bit, bring this terrain down just a few blocks and kind of build a large well almost in the top of it with some kind of ruined pillars and some dilapidation to the whole area. I think it's going to look really, really cool. I'm really excited for it, and bring a ton of moss into this area so it looks a little bit more overgrown and stuff. And I think it's going to look really cool. And like I said, kind of bring this whole thing down and open up a giant hole right here that's kind of like the sunken well of this area. I think is going to look really cool. And obviously all the frogs have found their way up here, so I think that's going to be a nice little touch as well. So the next thing I want to do is actually do a little bit more terraforming and start doing the build for this whole area. All right, now that our hole is dug, it's time to turn this area into kind of an ancient site, bringing in some materials around this area to kind of build it up and make it look like a well. And one of the first things I want to do is actually use some black stained glass to kind of give it that fog effect down through this hole. I think it's going to look really cool. And then we're going to bring in some kind of monolithic stone structures around here with a nice path leading up here from the village itself. I think it's going to look really, really cool. So let's get into it. All right, now at a good stopping point for this episode, let's get the shaders on and take one last look around the village. And I gotta say, I'm really happy with how this is all looking from the entranceway here from our portal. We obviously have these nice little reeds and the flowers kind of popping out here at the entrance. We have our nice little copper golem lamp to kind of guide our way into the kind of bridge here. And obviously with the shaders on, these little skulk here kind of shimmering underneath the water looks so cool. I love it in this kind of trench area. You just get the little glimmer throughout, and I think it looks really, really fancy. But I love this village. I think it's coming out really well. Obviously, I want to expand on this later, but I think this is a really good spot for today. A lot of progress made. I think these little windmills, I think we could do a lot more of that kind of mechanical bit throughout the entire village. Find some other kind of makeshift mechanical pieces kind of to scatter throughout. I think it'll look really cool. We obviously have our fishing boat here and a nice little trap underneath the water. I think we could do a little bit more there as well. Obviously, we want to continue spreading out the mud. We kind of got a little bit far, but not entirely. I want to have this whole kind of waterway around this island kind of completely covered in mud and continue on with the skulk. We obviously have our nice large fish here, and obviously I want to do a little bit on the interiors too. Right now they are completely blank, but I want to do some more and throughout all of these. But that'll have to wait for a later date, probably on a live stream at some point. But I'm really happy with how everything's coming out. Obviously, want to bring in a little bit more life around these little areas here as well. But I am really happy with how that looks. We have our nice little fishing vessel here and everything. I think this whole village looks so cool. And as we make our way up to the well itself, we obviously are greeted with these nice large monoliths here kind of poking out of the ground. The nice dark deep slate road can kind of wandering up to the well itself, and we obviously get the glimmer of the dragon egg up there just kind of peeking out, giving ourselves something to kind of wander up towards. And I think it just comes out really, really cool. I really like the usage here of the coal throughout these monoliths as well. I think it's just a nice little touch in the kind of breaks up from all the regular moss and everything, and I think it just gives a nice little additional piece to them as well, and I think it just looks really cool. Obviously we have our frogs here jumping around the well itself, which I think came out really, really well. And with the shaders on this kind of abyss, looks really cool. Obviously we have the nice purple glass here kind of holding up the egg. I think a little bit more candlelight in here would look a little nicer as well, but I think it came out really cool. And actually I'll get your guys' opinion as we're talking about the candles themselves. We have some candles on these little posts around the whole area. Let me know if I should light those up or just keep them dark for now. I think it looks cool. We have the little bits of poking up there. I think it just looks really, really nice. And obviously we have these nice little entryways throughout the whole thing. But there's one last piece. Obviously we can't get down to our portal through all of this glass, so I went ahead and added a secret door here down into this kind of sewer area where again we have our frog kind of hanging out here. And I think this area itself could use a lot more love. Right now, there's no light. All the natural light is coming in through the stained glass itself, which I think is a pretty cool touch. Let me know what you guys think as well in that area. I think it looks really cool, and I think we could do a lot more in this area. A lot more texturing, a lot more shaping needed throughout this whole area, but I think we'll come back to it at a later date. Perhaps when Mojang decides that they want to do an end update, we'll come back here and continue on with this project. But I'm really happy with the progress today. I like the whole concept of this area, and if we make our way down this long tunnel here as we kind of continue down this large well area, it leads us all the way to our portal itself, which maybe we could do something a little bit different, but I think this works for now. I'm actually really happy with it. As it kind of adds to the mystical nature of it. Obviously, we'll want to do something a lot different with the portal room itself, but this works for me for right now. If we need to come back here to get more shulkers, or if we decide that we want to do an Enderman farm down there as well, I think this works. We'll obviously have to add some slabs here so that we can make it our way up this tunnel a little easier, but I'm actually really happy with it. I think, like I said, it adds to the kind of lore of the whole area, and it gives us something to kind of let our imagination wander a little bit. And obviously with the natural light coming down through those areas, I think it looks really cool. I would like to do a little bit to kind of darken up some of the areas, as I kind of brought in some of the cobbled deep slate to kind of attempt that, but I think we could do a lot more in this whole area. All right, so we've gone ahead and laid our road as well as a bunch of terraforming. We'll probably have to do some touching up throughout the whole area. I can already see I don't like this very much, so we'll probably have to come back through and do a little bit of touching up, but I think the roadmap for ourselves is kind of laid here. We have the blueprint now, so let's go ahead and actually talk about what we're going to be doing for the future of this world. So obviously we have our villager farm here as well as our bee farm. We also have our moss generator that kind of just hanging out here. So we're going to keep that there, but we're going to reorient it a little bit and build a building around it. And then we're going to build a couple of more farmhouses in this area as well, and then continue kind of building our actual farming area. And we're actually going to continue stretching our farming area throughout this whole kind of general area in front of us here, and that's going to give us a nice little farming district and kind of more of a residential feel to the whole area. I think it's going to look and feel really nice in the future as we kind of continue to expand out this direction. I think it's going to be really cool. And then as we make our way over towards our trading hall here is kind of where I want to kind of blend the two of the industrial area and our residential area. Kind of just blending them in over here is going to feel really nice and kind of continue to build out that eco-futurism where it kind of has the residential feel as well as the kind of more skyscraper style and more industrial feel to things. I think it's going to be nice if we can blend it all the way down through this valley, and that's going to feel really cool. So the first area I want to actually focus on is this waterfall right here. I've been looking at this waterfall for a while, kind of trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I want to bring a nice water wheel into here, but I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do it. So blending the futurism and the kind of residential feel to this whole area, I think we have a really good plan for this now. So atop of the waterfall here, I want to build a nice little water wheel that make it look a little bit more industrial as well, so that it kind of looks like it's generating some actual power throughout this whole area. And then down below here, I actually want to build up a sugarcane farm here and a bamboo farm here. I think it's going to be a nice little touch of that industrial feel in this area, but it also feels kind of nice and homey as well. So I think what we're going to have to do right now is set up our beacon and dig out some massive holes in this mountainside so that we can set up our two farms. All right, so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We have our first kind of silo for our sugarcane in place here. You can see we're using a ton of hoppers, so it's a really good thing that we have set up our iron farm at this point. This right here is where we're going to be piping it back up to the surface and into our storage itself. But yeah, this is kind of the unit itself, so it's kind of double-sided, so anytime that one fires, it's going to fire all of these and breaking them all. And then we're using mud, which will actually allow the hoppers to collect all of the materials that are on top of it, so you don't have to use a minecart or anything like that. The mud block itself is just slightly less than a full block, so that allows for the hoppers to pick up anything that's sitting on top of it. So those will all get piped into over here, and that'll actually be shot back up, like I said. So what I'm thinking is we're going to kind of use this unit here and then kind of spread it this direction, and we're going to go this direction another set or so as well. I was thinking we might bring it back 2 more as well, but for the moment being, I'm looking at this and thinking maybe this will be fine with just 1 more on the backside here, and then bringing this kind of as a 4 units to the right, or like total, so it'd be like 4x2. I think that should be enough, but we'll see. We can always expand this at a later date, but I think this is going to be really good. And then we're going to use this same exact process on the other side for bamboo. Again, piping it back up so that we can collect it in the storage units. And then we can cover this up with some decoration and never actually see the farms ever again, unless something breaks, and then we'll have to come in here. But there's one more thing I want to do before we get into the piping up to the surface, is actually set a bit of a crafter up in here so that we can actually turn all of the sugarcane into paper and then just send all the paper up, because we are never going to need sugarcane. We only need paper. So that's actually going to take 1 step out of this whole process. So we're going to actually have to set up a crafter in this area as well. That's going to be, maybe we'll have to do 2 separate crafters or something, make sure that it can actually feed all of the sugarcane that's being piped into it. I'm not entirely sure yet. We're going to have to kind of beta test this whole system to see what's necessary for the crafter itself. But what I want to do now is actually gather up some more pistons and stuff and kind of just build out all of the units here for our sugarcane. All right, so we've gone ahead and finished building our bamboo farm here, and it is currently crafting down into blocks of bamboo for us, just keeping a one tick kind of clock here to craft up the blocks for us. And you can also see that we've kind of set up where we want to send this bubble column up here, but obviously we can't send it to nowhere, which currently is the case. So I'm going to go ahead and do some terraforming around here, kind of accentuating this water feature. I really like this waterfall, and like I said earlier, I want to have a nice water wheel up here, but I really want to accentuate this whole look here because obviously we have a farm on each side of it. This water wheel kind of splitting those two builds, so I really want to bring in some natural features with a bunch of terraforming in here, some nice rock structures, and kind of make this waterfall look a little bit more presentable as this spider comes clashing down here. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of terraform this up and make it look real nice. All right, so we have our waterfall in place here, and you can see it's really been brought to life here with the kind of rocks and the foliage and everything kind of surrounding it. And then we have this nice little pool down here that all the water is flowing down into, which I think is a really nice touch here. It is a little bit awkward that you can't really see into it very well. We might have to do a little bit of changing up of this, but right now I think it's a really cool design. And like I said, the foliage kind of coming down into the pool looks really nice. A mixture of the moss blocks and the birch leaf blocks, as well as some of the coarse dirt here kind of surrounding everything. And then we just kind of tried to bring a little bit of life in with the grass surrounding it, some tall grass, a little bit of the firefly bush, which looks really, really nice at night, I think, mainly because it's kind of sparse. So you get this little bit of glow throughout the whole area. I think it looks really, really cool. And then we have a nice little touch of color up top here with the roots hanging down. I only kept it very minimal with the two. You can actually see the other one right through that birch leaf. Just try to keep it a little bit minimal as we have that kind of little overhang with the rock structure here on the left side. I think it looks really nice. And then bringing in some of the white stained glass as kind of like a representation of how the water is falling and kind of splashing up. We are playing in 26.2, so we have the new geysers. But I tried that out in a creative world and I just didn't really care for it. I think it's a nice touch, but maybe I'll have to mess around with it a little bit more. But for now, I liked the white stained glass kind of representing that splash effect. I think it looks really, really cool. And then up top here, I think we're going to do a little bit more detailing and stuff, adding a little bit more of that green stained glass with the brown candle on top of it just to give it a little bit more life up top there. But I think we're going to have to move into the next section of building here before we get into that. So moving into the next phase of this build, I'm going to go ahead and build the water wheel here up top, as well as two kind of structures that are holding this water wheel that kind of represent like the water wheel is generating some energy, and these two large buildings are kind of storage containers, if you will, for that energy. I think they look really cool and they have nice little subtle details. So we're going to build those up and come right back. All right, so we have our power station towers in place here with our water wheel now. And I got to say, I'm loving this look. We're going to want this orange copper to kind of oxidize down to that greenish blue patina look. But I think it looks pretty good right now. Obviously, in the windows here, we're going to actually end up putting frog lights behind them. And it's going to give that nice glow at nighttime. Right now, we just have lichen behind there where we don't have access to frog lights at the moment. And actually, the lichen does a pretty good job of showing that glow. But I think it's going to kind of tell a cool story as well. Right now, it's starting to charge as it's brand new. And then when we get the frog lights, it's going to look like it's fully charged. And it's like shows that progression in the world. So I'm actually really excited about that kind of story element that we're going to be able to produce with this whole thing. So I'm actually thinking that's pretty cool. And again, another close look here at this pond area where we have our first little waterfall that leads into the secondary one here, bringing in a little bit of life with the small drip leaves as well as the firefly bushes and then just a bunch of seagrass underneath it. It does look like we had to do a little bit of touching up. And as I said, I wanted to bring in the green stained glass with the brown candle on top of it to give that kind of cattail look up here. But I think this came out really cool. I actually like this little kind of sanctuary area up here. And then obviously we drop down into our kind of holding chamber down here, which I think is really cool as well. So for the last bit of this episode, I'm going to go ahead and build up our kind of collection storage houses here. So we're going to have one where our beacon currently is, as well as one over in this area. And they're kind of going to match a little bit and kind of frame out this waterfall. And I'm actually really excited for these builds. So I'm going to go ahead and get those in place. So I'm at this really cool lush cave here in the middle of this mountain. And right now, I'm thinking we're going to pick up a few axolotls so that we can put them in that kind of pool area beneath our waterfall. I think it's going to be a really cool touch. Just have these guys kind of floating around in there. Since we already have a pink one, I don't think I want to grab another one. I'll try to mix up the colors as best as I can. But I don't know if we're going to find... Oh, we got a yellow one right there. We'll grab that guy. All right, our builds are pretty much done here and in place. And I got to say, I absolutely love this piece here now coming down with this waterfall, these nice new buildings and everything. I think it's such a good touch to the whole area and really brings that kind of futuristic look with a little bit of the kind of natural environment in here as well. And I think it's just a really, really cool build. I'm really happy with how this came out. And like I said, we got our axolotls swimming around in here. Also brought in a little bit of life with the cactus flowers here, just giving it a little bit of color. I do need a couple more, but I think that looks really cool in here. Obviously, like I've said before, we have all the grass growing up the edges with this little arch waterfall coming down through. I think it's just a beautiful little touch. And then obviously with our buildings here, just bringing in a ton of that life, bringing it all to life with as many flowers and bushes as we can, and a little bit of flower pots as just kind of pops of color against the white. I think is just a really, really nice touch. And then on in the inside, we have a nice little interior here for us. So for our bamboo, we kind of went heavy with the bamboo a little bit and added a bunch of green and everything just to give it a nice little touch of life when you come in here and collect your blocks. I think this is a really nice little interior. And then we can go over to our other interior where we have our sugar cane. Again, just bringing in flower pots all around here, adding a little bit of color. I really like the way these windows came out using the shelves here as kind of the dividers of the windows is really cool. And then up top here we have solar panels, just bringing in that futuristic piece once again, just as a little awning over the windows is a nice little touch. And then on the interior here we have all kinds of bookshelves and everything. We're gonna have to fill these up with books at a certain point here, but I think the interior is looking really nice in here. Again, all of our paper in this shelf here, or in this chest rather, and I think it's just a nice little interior. I think we could do a ton more in this area, but I think it's all right. All we're going to be doing is collecting paper in here, so it doesn't need to be too extreme. We actually did do a little bit of decorating on this one. On the other one, I think I want to do some more solar panels and like ducking, some like vents basically on this roof. I think it'll look really nice, but I just don't have the materials for it at the moment. But up here, we did like kind of a rooftop garden look with some carrots and potatoes. We have a bunch of materials over here that our little golem is working on, and we have just nice little garden shed basically, and just a little bit of life up here. I think it's a nice little touch as you kind of fly over. You can kind of see the life of this build and things like that. As you can see, I've been hard at work here, kind of turning this little tree line that we had into a kind of moderate sized forest here. And I actually got to say, I'm really happy with how this came out. Again, just extending our birch trees and these kind of spruce variants that we have all the way down into here. And it looks really nice now that we have kind of a full blown forest in here, dividing up kind of our farming region from our more moderate region that we expanded on in our last episode. As you can see, I've added a ton of detail throughout here, adding little bushes on the ground as well as some stones and some of our berry bushes. You can also see I've brought in a little bit of that kind of blue vine up there just as a nice little pop of color, and then just trying to keep things as normal as possible or as vanilla as possible with the yellow petals here throughout the entire forest. I think it's just a beautiful thing. And as nighttime kind of falls here, you can see there's a nice little glow throughout the entire forest, adding just a little bit of glow lichen throughout here to keep it moderately safe. It's definitely not spawn proof, but it kind of gives it a little bit of that kind of enchanted forest feel as you're looking through here. I think we could do a little bit more throughout this as well. We kind of have a rock wall up here. As you can see, it's poking through a little bit right there. I think a nice little waterfall or a little trickling stream down into here would be a really, really nice touch. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and add that in a later time here, but I think it looks really cool. You can also see we have like the little blue mushrooms as a little bit of pop of color, and then just adding these yellow trees kind of spreading down through here, keeping it sparse. I think we have 3 or 4 of them in this whole little forest area that we have in front of us here, but I absolutely love the way it looks throughout this entire forest. And you can also see that we've gone ahead and done a bit of detailing in this area for the roadway itself, bringing that moss and mossy cobble in on the edges, and then just mixing in a little bit more of that gravel and andesite with the cobblestone. It's just a nice little gradient throughout this whole pathway, and I absolutely love the way it comes in off of the forest here. I think it feels really welcoming and kind of just like has that natural flavor to the whole thing. You can also see we brought in some of the leaf litter on the edges as well. As you get more into the forest, well, I just don't have that much leaf litter, so it's not perfect, but it works. And then obviously bringing in a little bit of railings here on the edges of the pathway, just kind of separating the path from the forest. I actually think I want to do something a little bit different. I'm just not entirely sure what I want to do at this moment. So I just went with the spruce railings along the edges, and I think it works pretty well right now. But I think in the later date, we'll have to revisit that and kind of see if we can't find something else to put there. But obviously this road stretches all the way over towards our nether portal and everything. I added one large boulder over here as well, just to kind of break things up. But in this area, I think I'd like to bring in like maybe some benches or something like that and make it feel a little bit more welcoming rather than just forest in this area. You can see we have a kind of a nice gap right here between the tree line and the road itself. So I'm thinking maybe like a bench or something, maybe a flower bed. It's like a specific flower bed in here would feel really nice, but I'm just not entirely sure what I want to do there yet. But I am absolutely loving the way this forest feels. It just encompasses so much terrain, and it just feels really nice as you kind of walk along this pathway, just feeling the looming trees over you and everything. I think it's really, really fun. But for today, what I want to focus on is this hillside here. So I'm thinking about bringing in a building over here. You can also see we've already gotten a little bit of coarse dirt for like a pathway up here as well. So we're going to be adding another building there. And then on the back side of them, we're going to be extending some crop fields here so that we can get some villagers back here moving around. We're going to extend this carrot farmer field a little bit and get a new villager in there. We actually lost our villager to a raiding party, so we're gonna have to replace him. Luckily, we still have our villager behind us there to collect the carrots, but I think we're gonna extend out this carrot patch just a little bit to make it feel a little bit larger. And then, like I said, bringing in 2 more fields here to kind of just add some more flavor to this area and let it be known that this is kind of our farming district. For our moss generator itself, we're actually going to reorient to this, which means we're going to have to tear it all down and move it a little bit. But we're going to kind of keep it on this roadway a little bit. So what I'm thinking is kind of having a area where we can turn on the farm itself, and then another area where we can collect all the moss itself, and just building up a nice little house around it to make it look a little bit more presentable here on this hillside rather than just kind of a redstone contraption. So what I'm going to go do for right now is gather some materials and come back here and start building. For our first stop, we were off to the wood farm to gather all of the various wood types that we're going to need for this project, including a ton of stripped logs. And now this is my suggestion for stripped logs. Since we have the stone cutter that we can now turn deep slate into cobbled deep slate, we should get a stone cutter to turn logs into stripped logs. Then it was back home to fill up all of our shulker chest with all the various things that we're going to need for the remainder of this project. All right, so we have our first house in place here, and it is looking pretty nice. Again, just kind of keeping it a little bit modest here to match our other houses in this area, doing a little bit of a mix between the jungle and the birch as well, and then trying something a little bit different here with the looms as the trim along the roof line. I think that came out pretty nice, and then just mixing in a bit of color here with the cherry blossom leaf blocks and kind of bringing in some of the scaffolding over here, as well as our little copper golem, just giving it a little bit of pop of color throughout the whole build. But this is pretty much complete at this point. I think I want to add a birch tree here to kind of frame in this side of the building, because this side of it is a little bit bare at this time. So I think adding a birch tree right here to kind of frame it in would be really nice. And then obviously on the inside, we're going to have to come back through and add some interior. You could see where we had a creeper already blow up in here. So we'll have to come back through at a later date and add interiors to all of these houses in this area. But I'm actually pretty happy with this build. So now we're going to go ahead and start building this house over here. All right, now that we have our second build in place here, let's go ahead and take a closer look at it. So you can see that we have this kind of carport here on the side with a mixture of red tones and dark tones, using our mangrove with a mixture of bricks here on the roof, as well as the dark oak trims. And then we have these little kind of footers here on the roof off the edge, where we're bringing in the mangrove fences as well as the granite walls. And I actually built this originally with the new sulfur or cinnabar block actually, but we don't have that yet for ourselves. We haven't gone and adventured for it yet. So I just put in the andesite as a bit of a placeholder here, but I think the new cinnabar block actually looks a bit better here. It's a little bit more red, where this is kind of a muted pink. I know there's pink tones in the new cinnabar block, but it's a little bit more red. It matches the mangrove just a little bit better than this, but right now this is what we have. So again, we have this nice little cart here backed in. We can see we also have a little bit of a track here, so it helps, you know, a builder kind of load up his supplies in the back here. We also have a bit of shelving in here to kind of just add to the whole story of this area. I think I'd like to come through and add some tools around here as well, with a little bit of armor stand magic, but we really haven't done any armor stands yet in this world, so I think I'm going to hold off on that for now. We'll come back to it at a later date, probably on a live stream or something, and do a bit of armor stand magic around this world. But for now, this is kind of what we got. Stepping over here to kind of the main structure of this build, you can see that it's a nice tall skinny build, and if I go into our free cam mod, it actually is a little bit of a representation of the entryway to our starter build. So we have this nice skinny tall build here, and then with our new build here, we kind of emulated that a little bit, but the roof design is a little bit different. And then you can actually see that I added the white chimney as well to match our starter base. So I'm actually really happy with how this came out. It's kind of a little bit of it tells a bit of a story in this area of the builder kind of matching his style throughout as he continues building. So I actually kind of like that a little bit. It kind of tells a little bit of a story throughout the world. And then bringing in some yellow tones with the bamboo blocks, I actually like this a lot. You can actually see how that kind of wraps around here and how it matches the oak and kind of splits up from the spruce upward. I think it looks really nice. I think we're missing a little bit of action in here on top of this window. We'll have to probably come through at a later date and add a little bit up there, probably add some more mechanical bits or something. But for now, this is kind of what we got, and I'm actually kind of happy with how it looks with these nice brown splotches on the walls and everything. I think it looks really cool. And then this little build off to the side here is kind of just supposed to be like a dry storage for some crops or things like that. And then you can see I added a bit of the bamboo striping here on this top part. I actually like that a lot as you're coming up from like our forest area, just catching that glimpse of yellow popping there. It looks really cool. And then using the different tones of copper for the roofs actually looks really nice as well. It kind of matches the lighter tones of the build and kind of just brings this whole thing together. And I actually really like this build. I think it's adds a little bit of life to this area, a lot of color and a lot of like character to the build right now, which I'm really happy with. And you can also see that we added a little bit of pathway up to the main door as well as to the dry storage area. Right now there is no interior again, but soon we're going to be adding villagers, so we're going to have a bit of a storage unit in here as well, just to catch all of the carrots or potatoes or whatever we decide that they're going to be harvesting. Will probably be in that little area there. So that's going to be good for now. Now that we have these two builds in place for our villagers, in fact, I think it's a good time to kind of go ahead and extend this field, get our second fields in here, and yeah, bring a couple of villagers over to get this place a little bit more populated. All right, so we have all of our farmers in place here now, and this is totally operational. You can see I went ahead and split up the fields a little bit. We have some potatoes over here. We've got wheat over here. This guy's going to grab a bunch of wheat for us so that it can kind of help out with our mud creation in the future. That way I don't have to manually harvest all of our wheat. This guy will gather all the wheat for us for our mud creation in the future. And then we just expanded out this carrot field just a little bit to gather some more carrots there. And yeah, we got these guys locked in so we can do a little bit of trading with them if we need to. We have villagers over in our villager hall that we can trade with, but just in case, we got these guys locked in as well. And you can see I went ahead and added a ton of torches around here to kind of help out with the spawn proofing. I don't know how well it's going to work. We're probably going to have to replace villagers over time, but these guys are locked in here for now. And yeah, this thing is totally operational. You can see over here, I've already gone ahead and removed that lichen farm that was in this area. So now I need to go ahead and actually tear down this entire moss generator so that we can kind of shift it and build a nice, beautiful build around it. All right, now that the moss farm is all set here, let's take a closer look. And I gotta say, just right off the rip here, guys, I'm actually really happy with how this build all came out and kind of how it works. I think there's a little bits of touches here and there that could be made some improvements of, but I'm really happy with how this came out. So you can see here, we actually have our lever so that we can turn on this farm over here in this little area. Added some green lights here. We don't have any of the frog lights yet, so I just added some of the sea lanterns behind some green glass, and I actually think that is a pretty cool little marquee here. It adds a nice little glow of light down below here at nighttime as we are approaching here. But yeah, just adding a ton of the oak wood here with the mud blocks, and then mixing in some of the copper here, the like oxidized copper, just to give it a nice little touch of color, and then little accents of jungle wood throughout as well. Again, using a little bit of note blocks here as a little bit of like a trim block itself, some copper up on the roof here just to get a little bit of color. And then over here, you can see we actually, like I said, turned the farm. So you can see into this window, the redstone will be right there. So when we turn on the farm at nighttime, you get a nice little glow of redstone in there. It's a pretty cool little touch. And then over here, I think this is my main sticking point for this build right now that could use some improvement, is kind of this just like display of the moss. I think it could use a little bit of improvement for sure. It's kind of just a moss block. We got some flying birds here with some clouds in the sky. It's a nice little touch, nothing too special. But then I brought in a little bit of purple as a kind of just another accent block, and I think it goes really well with the jungle wood and the oxidized copper and everything like that. It's just a nice colored block that kind of matches these things. But using it, I noticed that it's a block that is completely underutilized. Like right now, I think it only has slab stairs and full blocks, and I think it has like a chiseled variant, but it has no walls or anything like that. So it's definitely a block that could use some love from the Mojang team, but that's okay. We can use it as is right now. Obviously, just bringing in a little bit of touch of life throughout here, adding some flowers hanging and everything like that. Again, using a little bit of purple here above our chest, which we have a bunch of moss blocks coming down into, using the note blocks as a bit of trim again below the chests themselves. So we could actually run this farm and gather some more moss right now. We just need to flip that switch. It does add a little bit of life to the shelves there, but that's okay. Again, we have a nice little kind of standing area over here, and you can actually hear the farm working. And yeah, I think we're out of bone meal in there right now. But yeah, this farm is fully operational now, which I think is really, really cool. Now with the buildings in place, it was time to add a few more details around here, including these two custom trees that we've previously used over by our trading hall, and then just bringing those over here by our gardens, and then finishing off with one last birch tree to frame out this house that we discussed earlier on. With only 70 days remaining before we reach 1,000 days in this world, I want to make sure I go through and add as many details as possible in areas like this. Our road still needs to be detailed, and this area right here particularly is looking a little flat. So with our remaining 70 days, I'm going to make sure I add as many details as possible. All right, so we are pretty much complete here with a little bit of time to spare. So it's time to throw on the shaders and take one last look around this area. And I gotta say, I'm so happy with how this has come out. I love this little forested area now with all the little bits of detail throughout and everything. It's just really enchanting, and it feels really nice having this kind of in this area so that we can always come and visit and get a little bit of tranquility. You can see I went ahead and added the little waterfall. It's kind of hard to see, but it comes from this little rock formation right here. Maybe I should have brought it up a couple blocks, but I think it's a really good spot here, and it kind of travels all the way down into this area. Over this area here, you can see we added a bit of a retaining wall with some overhanging lights. Just because the forest does get pretty dark at night, we did do a little bit of glow lichen throughout this area to kind of help reduce the spawning, but wanted to keep the pathway as safe as possible. So we added these kind of lanterns here with a little bit of foliage on them just to kind of tie in the whole atmosphere. And yeah, we actually need these guys to oxidize down just a little bit, but that's okay. But oh man, I just love this area so much now. And then making our way back up towards the moss farm here with this nice large tree, you can see I added a little bit of color here with like kind of wind chimes hanging from it just to add a pop of color and character in this area. And I absolutely love this too. I think this moss farm came out really nice, and I can't wait to use it in the future. It's just a nice little spot to come hang out and grab our materials for the future. I think it's really cool. Obviously, we added bits of detail throughout the roadway all the way back up towards our house, just to tie everything in together. Again, another lamp here looking really nice. And then I added just a couple small benches down here and a little bit of foliage to just kind of tie in the environment. We might do a little bit more in the future in this area. Just not really sure what we should do at the moment. I think these little benches and little bits of bush help it just kind of tie it all together here. And then again, obviously adding all of the detail, all of the texturing throughout the entire road all the way around. Took a little bit, but I think it looks really nice. And then over here, we also added another little retaining wall with a little bit of light, some fencing in here to just kind of guide your eyes all the way down through this pathway and then over towards our iron farm. Everything is looking so very nice now, and I absolutely love the way that this build in particular came out. At first I was feeling a little bit, skeptical about it. I thought it was a little undetailed or lacking of detail, but I think just from this view in particular, you get the little copper golem there in the window, the little stuff piled up on the side, and a little bits of color, that nice trim on top of it. I think it just looks really nice. And then you can see I went ahead and added some bushing throughout the hillside here as well, just to tie it all back in together. And then this is kind of where I ended things, just bringing these little fences in here again, kind of drawing your eye or guiding you along this pathway out towards our iron farm or out towards the farming area as well. So yeah, I think this all came out really, really nice. The last thing that we have to do is actually grab a couple of maps, and I'm gonna have to take a couple of map pictures here, one of this entire area and then one out towards our wood farm and out towards our end portal area that we just recently built up. So without further ado, let's see how this looks on the map. Okay, that's not too bad. We're gonna have to kind of zoom out probably, and actually, should I zoom out or just take multiple? I'm not entirely sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and there you have it, 1,000 days in our world. And yeah, we have some beautiful maps here. This one came out a little bit larger than I was hoping, but I think it looks fantastic up there. With a little bit of a closer look, you can see everything is looking so fantastic. We have all of our farms in place here now, the nice large forest, our little mech over here with our portal. Everything is looking so fantastic. I can't wait to continue expanding on all of this. Adding more custom trees, more custom builds throughout this whole region is going to look so fantastic. And then I went ahead as well and added 1,000 days for Fell Hollow, that I'm calling it, is where we chop all of our trees. That's our little tree farm right there, our nice little road down to our kind of cabins. We're going to be expanding on this area in the future as well. I can't wait for that. And then on the opposite side, we have where we built for our portal, which I am calling Void Mirror. We have our swamp area, and I absolutely love this as well. I wish the mud in the water here showed up a little bit better, but I think that is fantastic. I can't wait to expand on all of this as well. It's going to be a great project in the future. Can't wait for it. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, with 1,000 days now spent in the world, that is going to do it for me in this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. It was fun. I can't wait to continue expanding on this region and the rest of the world itself. So thank you once again. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that like button. And I'll see you guys very, very soon.